Welcome to Christmas Stories for Sleep. Tonight's story is A Crown for Christmas, a heartwarming tale of love, community, and finding home in the most unexpected places. Let yourself sink into comfort as we journey to the charming town of Hollyberry Lane, Vermont, where a princess discovers that the most precious gifts can't be found in any palace. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let this gentle Christmas story carry you peacefully towards sleep. The morning light filtered through the ornate stained glass windows of Eldovia's royal palace, casting prismatic rainbows across the marble floors of Princess Amelia's private studio. She stood before her latest creation, a towering sculpture made entirely of recycled Christmas ornaments and discarded royal regalia, twisted into an abstract representation of modern holiday consumerism. The piece was bold, provocative, and completely at odds with the palace's centuries-old traditions. Amelia Victoria Sophia Elizabeth, Queen Isabella's voice echoed through the corridors, sharp enough to cut through the thick palace walls. What in heaven's name is this? This monstrosity? Princess Amelia didn't turn around as her mother swept into the studio, her silk morning dress rustling with indignation. Behind her, King Frederick followed with measured steps, his expression caught between exasperation and reluctant admiration. "It's called The Gilded Cage of Yuletide Expectations," Amelia replied, wiping plaster dust from her hands with a paint-stained rag. "It's a commentary on how modern society has commercialized the sacred traditions of Christmas, reducing spiritual celebration to mere material acquisition. It's a disaster," Queen Isabella declared, gesturing dramatically at the installation. "You've dismantled priceless family heirlooms. Great-grandmother's sapphire tiara is hanging from what appears to be a toilet paper roll." "Recycled toilet paper roll," Amelia corrected, "and the juxtaposition represents—" "Enough!" King Frederick's voice boomed across the studio, causing several delicate glass ornaments to chime against each other. "Amelia, you are 26 years old. You are the crown princess of Eldovia, and Christmas is in exactly 16 days. Amelia finally turned to face her parents, her paint-splattered apron a stark contrast to their formal attire. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, secured with what appeared to be a paintbrush, and her green eyes, the same shade as her father's, sparkled with defiance. "And what does that have to do with my art?" Queen Isabella stepped forward, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "It has everything to do with your future, dear. Prince Andrew of Montemayor is expecting to court you during the Christmas season. The alliance between our kingdoms depends on me playing dress-up and pretending to swoon over some stuffy prince who probably couldn't tell a Monet from a menu?" Amelia interrupted, crossing her arms. "Prince Andrew is a perfectly suitable young man from an excellent family," the Queen continued. "He's educated, well-traveled, and quite handsome from what I understand." "I'm sure he's thrilling," Amelia muttered. King Frederick moved to stand beside his wife, presenting a united front. "Amelia, we've been more than patient with your artistic pursuits. But it's time you learned something about real Christmas traditions, not this modern nonsense about commercialization and social commentary." "Real traditions?" Amelia's voice rose an octave. "You mean like the diamond-encrusted Christmas tree in the throne room? Or the solid gold nativity scene that costs more than most people earn in a lifetime?" "We mean traditions that bring communities together," Queen Isabella said firmly. "Traditions that celebrate the simple joys of the season: love, family, generosity, humility." "Humility?" Amelia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "From people who live in a palace with 47 bedrooms?" The king and queen exchanged a look that Amelia had seen countless times before, the look that preceded a royal decree she wouldn't like. "Which is exactly why," King Frederick said slowly, "we've made arrangements for you to spend Christmas in America, in a small town called Hollyberry Lane, Vermont." Amelia's heart skipped. "America? But what about the Christmas ball, the treaty negotiations? Prince Andrew?" "Prince Andrew will be joining you there," Queen Isabella said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He's volunteered to experience authentic American Christmas traditions alongside you. Think of it as an adventure in courtship. You're sending me away? 2 weeks before Christmas? We're sending you to learn, the king corrected. Lady Margaret Wellington has graciously offered to serve as your chaperone. She has a cousin in this Hollyberry Lane who has agreed to host you. You'll be staying under assumed names, of course. No one must know your true identity. Amelia felt the walls of the studio closing in around her. For how long? Until Christmas Day, her mother replied. If you can demonstrate that you've truly learned the value of authentic Christmas traditions, and if things progress favorably with Prince Andrew, you may return for the New Year celebrations. And if I refuse? King Frederick's expression grew stern. Then you'll find yourself spending Christmas in the North Tower, with nothing but bread, water, and a very long time to contemplate your royal responsibilities. Amelia looked between her parents, searching for any sign that this was an elaborate joke. Finding none, she turned back to her sculpture, her fingers tracing the edge of her great-grandmother's dismantled tiara. Fine, she said quietly, but I'm not promising to fall in love with Prince Andrew. We're not asking you to fall in love, Queen Isabella said gently, moving to place a hand on her daughter's shoulder. We're asking you to keep an open mind about traditions, about community, about what really matters during Christmas, and about finding a suitable husband, the king added. And about finding a suitable husband, the queen agreed with a sigh. 3 days later, Princess Amelia found herself stepping out of a hired car onto the snow-covered main street of Hollyberry Lane, Vermont. The town looked like something from a Christmas card painted by someone with an excessive enthusiasm for holiday decorations. Every building was draped in lights, garland, and enough red ribbon to wrap the entire palace back home. The lamp posts were decorated to look like candy canes, and someone had managed to convince every shop owner to hang wreaths so large they nearly blocked their doorways. Good Lord, muttered Lady Margaret, emerging from the car behind her. It's rather festive, isn't it? Amelia, who had insisted on traveling under the name Amy Winters, pulled her designer coat tighter against the Vermont cold. The fake name felt strange on her tongue, but it was certainly easier than explaining why a European princess was wandering around a small American town in hiking boots and jeans. It looks like Christmas threw up, she murmured, then immediately felt guilty. Despite her cynicism, there was something undeniably charming about the scene. Children were building snowmen in the town square. Their laughter carried on the crisp December air. The scent of cinnamon and pine mixed with the sharp bite of snow, creating an olfactory symphony that was both foreign and oddly comforting. "Miss Winters!" a cheerful voice called from across the street. A plump woman with rosy cheeks and graying hair waved enthusiastically as she approached. "I'm Alma Ward. I own the bakery here. Margaret's cousin?" "We spoke on the phone." Lady Margaret stepped forward with practiced diplomatic grace. "Mrs. Ward, how lovely to meet you in person. This is Amy, the young woman I mentioned." Alma enveloped Amelia in a hug that smelled like sugar cookies and vanilla extract. "Welcome to Hollyberry Lane, dear. We're so excited to have you for Christmas. The whole town's buzzing about our visitors from Europe." "Visitors?" Amelia asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Oh, yes. We have a young gentleman arriving tomorrow, Prince something or other. Very exciting, though I suppose you royalty types are probably used to that sort of thing." Alma winked conspiratorially. Amelia forced a smile. "Actually, I'm not. Amy's just a friend of the family," Lady Margaret interrupted smoothly. "Nothing royal about her. Well, royal or not, you'll fit right in here. Everyone's family in Hollyberry Lane. Especially during Christmas." Alma gestured toward the town square, where a massive Christmas tree stood, surrounded by what appeared to be the beginnings of an elaborate stage setup. "We're preparing for our annual Christmas pageant. It's the biggest event of the year. Everyone participates." "Even visitors?" Amelia asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "Especially visitors," Alma laughed. "Sam Miller's in charge of the whole production this year. He's our local carpenter. Builds the most beautiful sets you've ever seen. Lost his wife a few years back, poor dear, but he's kept the Christmas spirit alive for his 2 little ones. As if summoned by the mention of his name, A man emerged from behind the Christmas tree, carrying what appeared to be a large piece of plywood. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing work clothes dusted with sawdust and a knit cap pulled low over dark hair. Even from a distance, Amelia could see the focused concentration on his face as he examined the stage framework. "Sam," Alma called out, "come meet our Christmas visitors." The man looked up, and Amelia found herself caught off guard by the intensity of his gaze. His eyes were a warm brown, but there was something guarded about them, as if he'd learned to be careful about letting people too close. "Sam Miller," he said, approaching with measured steps. He pulled off his work gloves and extended a hand to Lady Margaret. "Welcome to Hollyberry Lane." "Margaret Wellington," Lady Margaret replied with her practiced smile. "And this is Amy Winters." Sam turned to Amelia, and she found herself momentarily flustered. Up close, she could see that his eyes weren't just brown. They were flecked with gold, like autumn leaves caught in sunlight. There was something solid and dependable about him that was entirely different from the polished courtiers she was used to. "Amy," he said, taking her hand in a firm handshake. His palm was calloused from years of manual work, warm despite the December cold. "Nice to meet you," she managed, then immediately felt foolish for sounding so formal. "So you're here for Christmas?" he asked, releasing her hand and stepping back. "Unfortunately, yes. Yes, we're here for Christmas." One of Sam's eyebrows raised slightly at her slip. "Unfortunately?" Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I just meant, it's an adjustment. The town is very festive." "Too festive for you?" There was something challenging in his tone, though not unfriendly. "No, it's just." Amelia gestured vaguely at the overwhelming display of Christmas cheer surrounding them. "It's a lot." "Christmas usually is," Sam replied. "At least when it's done right." Before Amelia could ask what he meant by that, two children came barreling around the corner of the bakery, both moving at the speed that only children can achieve when there's snow on the ground and Christmas in the air. "Dad!" The older child, a girl who looked to be about 10, skidded to a stop near Sam. "Mrs. Thompson says we can paint the backdrop for the nativity scene. Can we? Please? If you promise not to get more paint on yourselves than on the backdrop," Sam replied, his expression softening completely as he looked at his daughter. "I'm Melanie," the girl announced to Amelia, apparently deciding that any adult present was worthy of immediate friendship. "And this is my little brother Coulter. He's 7, and he still believes in Santa Claus." "I do not," Coulter protested, his cheeks red from both cold and indignation. "Do too. Do not." "Kids," Sam said with the patient tone of a parent who'd mediated this argument before. "What do we say to visitors?" "Nice to meet you," both children chorused, though they continued to glare at each other. "Nice to meet you too," Amelia replied, surprised by how genuinely she meant it. There was something refreshing about the children's straightforward honesty, so different from the careful politeness she was used to. "Are you here to help with the Christmas pageant?" Melanie asked. "We need lots of help. Dad says it's going to be the best one ever, but that means everyone has to pitch in." "I'm not really the pageant type," Amelia said carefully. "Everyone's the pageant type in Hollyberry Lane," Sam said, and she couldn't tell if he was joking or not. "It's kind of a community requirement." "A requirement?" "Well, maybe not a requirement," he conceded, "but definitely an expectation. This town takes Christmas seriously." As if to prove his point, the sound of Christmas carols began drifting from somewhere nearby. Live voices, not recorded music. A group of teenagers was practicing harmonies near the town fountain, their breath creating small clouds in the cold air. "Come on," Alma said, linking her arm through Amelia's. "Let's get you settled in. You'll be staying above the bakery. I've got a lovely little apartment all ready for you. And don't worry about the Christmas pageant. Once you see what this town can do, you'll be fighting for a chance to participate." As they walked toward the bakery, Amelia caught one last glimpse of Sam Miller. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, part curiosity, part skepticism, and something else that might have been interest. "Amy," he called out, causing her to turn back. "I hope you find what you're looking for here." It was a strange thing to say to someone who was supposedly just visiting for the holidays. But as Amelia followed Alma into the warm, cinnamon-scented interior of the bakery, she found herself wondering what exactly she was looking for, and whether she'd recognize it if she found it. The apartment above the bakery was small but charming, with exposed wooden beams and windows that overlooked the town square. From her bedroom, Amelia could see the Christmas tree and the half-built stage where Sam Miller was still working. Even as the sun began to set, she'd come to Hollyberry Lane expecting to endure 2 weeks of forced Christmas cheer before returning to her real life. But something about the town, about the genuine warmth of its people, the infectious enthusiasm for the holiday, and the steady presence of a certain carpenter, was already beginning to chip away at her carefully constructed cynicism. Maybe her parents had been right about one thing. She was going to learn something here. She just wasn't sure it would be what they expected. Amelia woke to the sound of hammering and the rich aroma of baking bread. Sunlight streamed through the gauzy curtains of her temporary bedroom, revealing a picture-perfect winter morning. Snow had fallen during the night, blanketing the town square in pristine white and making the Christmas tree look like something from a fairy tale. She padded to the window in her silk pajamas, probably the most expensive sleepwear ever worn in Hollyberry Lane, and looked down at the bustling activity below. Sam Miller was already at work, directing a small army of volunteers in what appeared to be the construction of an elaborate stage set. Even from 2 stories up, she could see the focused intensity with which he approached his work, measuring twice and cutting once with the precision of someone who took pride in craftsmanship. A knock at her door interrupted her observations. "Amy, dear?" Alma's voice called through the thin wood. "I've got fresh cinnamon rolls and coffee downstairs when you're ready." Amelia glanced at her phone. 6:47 a.m. At the palace, she rarely saw dawn, unless she'd been up all night working on a sculpture. "I'll be right down," she called back, then immediately regretted committing to such an early start to her day. 20 minutes later, she descended the narrow stairs to find the bakery already humming with activity. Alma was pulling trays of golden pastries from the ovens, while a steady stream of locals stopped by for their morning coffee and gossip. "There she is!" Alma beamed, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. "How did you sleep, dear?" "Very well, thank you." Amelia accepted a steaming mug of coffee and breathed in the rich aroma. At home, her coffee was served in delicate porcelain cups by uniformed staff. This ceramic mug with its cheerful Hollyberry Lane Christmas Festival 2019 logo felt substantial in her hands, warming her palms through the glazed surface. "Alma, is this our Christmas visitor?" An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached the counter, her cane tapping softly against the hardwood floors. "Amy Winters, this is Della Sanders. She's lived in Hollyberry Lane longer than anyone, knows every story and every secret in town." Della's handshake was surprisingly firm. "Welcome, dear. I hear you're from Europe?" England, Amelia replied, sticking to the cover story Lady Margaret had constructed. "Just visiting for the holidays. How wonderful. And what do you think of our little Christmas celebration so far?" Amelia glanced out the window at the controlled chaos in the town square. Sam was now standing on a ladder, adjusting what appeared to be a star that would eventually crown the stable set. "It's very enthusiastic," Della laughed, a sound like silver bells. "That's one way to put it. Sam Miller doesn't do anything halfway." When his late wife Elena suggested he take over the Christmas pageant, he researched historical accuracy, biblical authenticity, and architectural integrity for 6 months before building his first manger. His wife suggested it. "Poor Elena passed 3 years ago," Alma said softly, refilling Amelia's coffee cup. "Cancer. But she made Sam promise to keep the Christmas traditions alive for the children. Not just his own, but all the children in town." Amelia found herself looking out the window again, seeing Sam's work in a different light. What she'd initially dismissed as small-town overenthusiasm suddenly seemed like something deeper, a labor of love and remembrance. "He's a good man," Della added, following Amelia's gaze. "Hasn't been the same since Elena died, but he throws himself into Christmas like it's his personal mission to make sure everyone else's holiday is perfect." "Even strangers passing through?" Amelia asked. "Especially strangers passing through," Alma said with a knowing smile. Sam believes Christmas is for everyone, no matter where they come from or how long they're staying. As if summoned by their conversation, the bakery door chimed and Sam himself entered, bringing a gust of cold air and the fresh scent of pine. His cheeks were red from the cold, and there were wood shavings in his dark hair. "Morning, Alma." "Della." He nodded to both women before his gaze settled on Amelia. "Amy, you're up early." "The hammering was quite effective as an alarm clock," she replied, then immediately regretted the slight edge in her voice. She wasn't usually sharp with people, but something about Sam Miller made her feel off balance. "Sorry about that. I like to get started before the kids wake up and want to help." He approached the counter, and Alma already had a large coffee and a bag of pastries ready for him. "Though speaking of help, I could use an extra pair of hands today if you're interested." Amelia nearly choked on her coffee. "Me? Unless you have other plans?" She thought of Lady Margaret, who was probably still sleeping off the jet lag in her room at the bed and breakfast across town. Her only plan was to wait for Prince Andrew's arrival, and then spend 2 weeks pretending to enjoy quaint American Christmas traditions while he courted her in the most boring possible way. "I don't really have experience with construction," she said carefully. "It's not construction, it's art," Sam replied, his expression serious. "We're creating a nativity scene that will transport people to Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. Every piece has to be authentic to the period. Every detail has to serve the story we're telling." Despite herself, Amelia felt a spark of interest. Authentic how? Research. Historical accuracy. Elena started a library of books about first-century Middle Eastern architecture, clothing, customs. Sam's voice softened when he mentioned his wife. She believed that if we were going to tell the Christmas story, we should tell it right. "That's actually quite thoughtful. You sound surprised." "I just didn't expect." Amelia trailed off, realizing she was about to insult the entire town's approach to Christmas. "You didn't expect a small town to care about historical accuracy?" Sam's tone was mild, but she caught the hint of challenge in it. "No, that's not what I meant." Amelia set down her coffee cup, frustrated with herself. At the palace, she was known for her eloquence, her ability to navigate complex diplomatic conversations. Here, she felt like she was constantly putting her foot in her mouth. "I meant I didn't expect." "Well, most Christmas displays are more about spectacle than substance." "And you're not a fan of spectacle?" "Not when it overshadows the meaning behind it." The words came out more passionately than she'd intended, and Sam's eyebrows raised slightly. Interesting perspective for someone who's visiting a town famous for its Christmas spectacle. Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks. She was being hypocritical, and they both knew it. "Maybe I'm hoping to be proven wrong." Sam studied her for a long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he was seeing more than she wanted to reveal. "Well then," he said finally, "you should definitely come help today. See what our spectacle is really about." Before she could think of a polite way to decline, Melanie burst through the bakery door with the energy of a small tornado. "Dad!" "Mrs. Thompson says the sheep costumes are ready for fitting, and Coulter wants to know if he can be a wise man instead of a shepherd, because shepherds don't get to carry gold." She paused to beam at Amelia. "Hi, Amy. Are you coming to help with the pageant today?" "I was just asking her the same thing," Sam said, his eyes never leaving Amelia's face. "Oh, you have to." Melanie bounced on her toes. "We're painting the backdrop for the stable, and Dad says you have to understand color theory and perspective and all sorts of artistic stuff to do it right." Amelia blinked in surprise. "He said that?" "Well, he said it needed someone with an artistic eye," Melanie clarified. "But I assumed that meant color theory and perspective, because that's what my art teacher talks about." Sam was watching this exchange with an expression that might have been amusement. "Melanie's in the advanced art class at school. She takes these things seriously." "Very seriously," Melanie confirmed. "So, are you coming?" Amelia looked between the eager faces of Sam and his daughter. Then, out at the town square where dozens of people were working together to create something beautiful. At the palace, her art was a solitary pursuit. Hours spent alone in her studio, creating pieces that most people didn't understand and many didn't appreciate. The idea of collaborative art, of creating something with and for a community was both foreign and oddly appealing. "I suppose I could help for a little while," she heard herself saying. "Excellent." Melanie clapped her hands together. "You can meet everyone. There's Mrs. Thompson, who teaches 3rd grade, and Mr. Jeffrey Collins, who's the mayor, and Tyler, who's in my class and thinks he knows everything about everything but really doesn't, and—" "Mel," Sam interrupted gently, "maybe let Amy finish her coffee before you introduce her to the entire town." "Right, sorry." Melanie grinned sheepishly. "I get excited about Christmas." "I can see that," Amelia said, and for the first time since arriving in Hollyberry Lane, her smile was completely genuine. An hour later, she found herself standing in front of a large canvas stretched between 2 wooden frames, holding a palette of paints and feeling completely out of her element. Around her, the controlled chaos of pageant preparation continued, children being fitted for costumes, adults building set pieces, teenagers practicing carols. "The idea is to create the illusion of depth," Sam explained, standing close enough that she could smell the pine scent that seemed to cling to his clothes. "The stable should look like it's really there, not just painted on a flat surface." "I understand the theory," Amelia said, staring at the blank canvas. "It's the execution I'm worried about. What kind of art do you usually do?" The question was casual, but Amelia hesitated. How could she explain her avant-garde installations, her commentary on modern society, her use of found objects and unconventional materials? Contemporary pieces, mostly. Mixed media, very. Modern. Modern like Picasso modern? Or modern like Jackson Pollock modern? She looked at him in surprise. "You know art?" "I know enough to appreciate it. Elena was an art teacher before we had kids. She taught me to see things differently." Sam gestured toward the canvas. She would have loved this project, the chance to combine historical research with creative expression. There was something in his voice that made Amelia's chest tighten. She recognized the tone. It was the same one she used when talking about her great-grandmother, the queen who had encouraged her artistic pursuits before the weight of royal duty became too heavy to ignore. "What would she have painted here?" Amelia asked softly. Sam was quiet for a moment, considering. "She would have started with the light. Elena always said that light tells the story, where it comes from, what it touches, what it reveals, and what it hides." He pointed to the upper corner of the canvas. The star would cast light down, illuminating the Holy Family but leaving the edges in shadow. Mystery and revelation at the same time. Amelia found herself studying the blank canvas with new eyes, imagining the interplay of light and shadow Sam had described. Almost without thinking, she picked up a brush and began to sketch the basic composition in pale blue. The outline of the stable, the suggestion of figures, the source of divine light. "That's—" Sam paused, watching her work. "That's exactly right." She looked up to find him staring at her with an expression of surprise and something that might have been respect. "It's just a basic composition. It's perfect. The proportions, the placement. You've created a focal point that draws the eye exactly where it should go." Amelia felt a warm flush of pride that had nothing to do with royal titles or diplomatic accomplishments. When was the last time someone had praised her art for what it was, rather than who she was? "Amy!" Melanie appeared at her elbow with a small canvas of her own. "Look what I'm painting! It's baby Jesus, but I can't get his face right. He looks kind of like an angry potato." Amelia looked at the earnest attempt and bit back a smile. "May I make a suggestion?" "Please." Babies' features are softer than adults. Their eyes are larger in proportion to their faces, and their noses are much smaller. Amelia took a clean brush and demonstrated with a few gentle strokes. "Like this." "Oh," Melanie's face lit up. "That's so much better. How did you know that?" "I've studied figure drawing," Amelia replied, which was true, even if it left out the part about private tutors and prestigious European art schools. "You're really good at this," Sam observed, watching as she helped Melanie adjust the proportions of her painting. "It's just basic technique," Amelia deflected, uncomfortable with the praise. "No, it's more than that. You understand how to see, really see, what you're looking at." Sam's voice was thoughtful. That's not something you can teach. It's a gift. Their eyes met for a moment, and Amelia felt something shift between them. A recognition, perhaps, of shared understanding about art and creativity and the desire to make something beautiful. "Dad!" Coulter came running over, his shepherd costume trailing behind him like a small brown cape. "Tyler Morrison says, I can't be a wise man because I'm too little, but that's not fair. The baby Jesus is littler than me." "The baby Jesus is supposed to be little," Sam replied patiently. "That's kind of the point. But I want to carry gold." "How about this?" Amelia interjected, surprising herself. "What if you're a shepherd who finds gold? Maybe you could discover a golden coin that you bring as a gift?" Coulter's eyes widened. "Can I do that, Dad? Can I find treasure?" Sam looked at Amelia with something that might have been gratitude. "I think we can work that into the story. Shepherds were poor, but that doesn't mean they couldn't find something special to give." "Yes." Coulter pumped his fist in the air and ran off to share the news with his friends. "Thank you," Sam said quietly. "You didn't have to do that. It was nothing. He just wanted to feel important." "Everyone wants to feel important," Sam agreed. "Especially at Christmas." There was something in his tone that made Amelia look at him more closely. "Do you feel important during Christmas, I mean?" Sam was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. Then quietly, "I feel useful." "That's close enough." Before Amelia could ask what he meant by that, Jeffrey Collins, the mayor, approached with a clipboard and an air of official business. "Sam, how's the progress coming along?" The mayor was a round, cheerful man who seemed to vibrate with civic enthusiasm. "And this must be our visitor from England. Amy, is it?" "Yes, hello." Amelia accepted another hearty handshake. "Wonderful to have you. I hope Sam's putting you to work. We believe in full participation here in Hollyberry Lane." "She's been very helpful," Sam said, and Amelia felt absurdly pleased by the simple compliment. "Excellent. Now, Sam, I've had word that our special guest will be arriving this afternoon. Prince Andrew of Montemayor. I want to make sure we're ready to give him the full Hollyberry Lane experience." Amelia's stomach dropped. She'd almost forgotten about Prince Andrew in the pleasant distraction of painting and community collaboration. "A prince?" Sam's eyebrows rose. "That's quite a Christmas visitor." "Yes, apparently he's interested in experiencing authentic American Christmas traditions," Mayor Collins explained. "Very exciting for our little town, though I'm not entirely sure what authentic American Christmas traditions look like to European royalty." "Probably not so different from anyone else's Christmas," Amelia said carefully. "The basics are universal, aren't they? Family, generosity, peace on earth." Sam gave her a sharp look, and she realized she'd spoken with more authority than her cover story would suggest. "Well said," Mayor Collins beamed. "That's exactly the spirit we want to show him." "Sam, do you think you could include him in the pageant preparations? Nothing like a little manual labor to understand the real meaning of Christmas? I'm sure he'd be." "Delighted," Sam replied dryly. After the mayor bustled away, Sam turned back to Amelia with a curious expression. "You seem to know a lot about what princes might find authentic." Amelia's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "I just think people are people, regardless of titles." Spoken like someone who's never met a prince. "Have you?" "Can't say I have, but I've met plenty of people who think they're royalty." Sam picked up his brush and added a few careful strokes to the backdrop. "Usually they're the ones who understand Christmas least." "That seems like a harsh judgment, is it? When was the last time you saw a king or queen serving soup at a homeless shelter? When was the last time you heard about a prince giving up his wealth to help the poor?" Amelia felt each word like a small sting. Maybe they do more than you realize. Maybe their contributions just don't make the news. "Maybe," Sam agreed. "But I tend to judge people by their actions, not their intentions." "And you've already judged this prince you've never met?" Sam paused in his painting and looked at her directly. "I've judged the system that creates princes. People who are born into wealth and privilege, who never have to work for anything, who never learn the value of community because they've always been separate from it." His voice was matter of fact, not angry, which somehow made it worse. How could someone like that possibly understand what Christmas means to ordinary people? Amelia found herself gripping her paintbrush so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Everything Sam was saying was an indictment of her entire existence. Her royal birth, her privileged life, her separation from the struggles of ordinary people. You think it's impossible for someone born into privilege to be genuine, to care about others? I think it's very difficult, Sam said carefully, as if sensing he'd touched a nerve. When you've never wanted for anything, when every door has been opened for you, when people treat you differently because of your birth instead of your character. How do you learn empathy? How do you understand what it means to sacrifice for something greater than yourself? Amelia stared at the canvas in front of her, seeing her carefully sketched composition blur as tears threatened. Because what Sam was describing, that was exactly her life. Doors opened because of her title. People deferring to her opinion because of her birth, wealth, and privilege that insulated her from the struggles of ordinary people. Was he right? Was she incapable of genuine understanding because of how she'd been raised? Amy? Sam's voice was gentler now, concerned. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Did I say something wrong? She blinked rapidly, forcing the tears back. No, you're probably right. About privilege and understanding, I mean. Her voice was steady, but it felt like speaking around broken glass. Some people probably are too removed from real life to truly understand what matters. I didn't mean, it's fine, she interrupted, setting down her brush. I should go. Lady Margaret will be wondering where I am. Amy, wait. Sam reached out as if to touch her arm, then dropped his hand. I wasn't talking about you. I don't even know you. Exactly, she said, managing a smile that felt like it might crack her face. You don't know me at all. She walked away before he could respond, leaving behind the backdrop that was supposed to tell the story of divine light illuminating the darkness. But as she fled across the town square, all Amelia could think about was how perfectly Sam Miller had just described the darkness of her own privileged life, and how impossible it would be for someone like her to ever truly belong in his world of authentic Christmas spirit. Amelia spent the rest of the morning walking aimlessly through Hollyberry Lane, trying to process her conversation with Sam. His words had cut deeper than they should have, perhaps because they echoed her own fears about her life and identity. By the time she returned to the bakery for lunch, she'd convinced herself that maintaining her distance from the pageant, and from Sam Miller, was the wisest course of action. That resolution lasted exactly as long as it took Prince Andrew of Montemayor to arrive. She was sitting by her window, sketching the town square in her notepad, when a black sedan pulled up to the bed and breakfast across the street. Even from 2 stories up, Prince Andrew was exactly what she'd expected. Tall, perfectly groomed, dressed in a cashmere coat that probably cost more than most people's cars. He moved with the practiced grace of someone who'd been trained in royal protocol since childhood, accepting help with his luggage without acknowledgement, surveying the town with the detached interest of a tourist visiting a quaint historical site. Oh, he's very handsome! Alma's voice came from behind her, and Amelia turned to find the baker peering over her shoulder at the scene below. Very proper looking. Do you think he'll want to try my Christmas cookies? I'm sure he'll be delighted, Amelia replied, though she knew Andrew's personal nutritionist would have a carefully planned meal schedule that didn't include local bakery treats. You should go introduce yourself. Lady Margaret mentioned you might have some things in common, both being from Europe and all. Before Amelia could explain that sharing a continent didn't necessarily create a bond, there was a commotion in the town square. A small crowd was gathering near the Christmas tree, and she could see Sam Miller at the center of it, gesturing at something with obvious frustration. What's happening down there? She asked. Alma squinted through the window. Oh dear, looks like something's gone wrong with the tree. The star's been wobbling all morning. I wondered when it would finally give up. Through the glass, Amelia could see the problem. The large star that crowned the Christmas tree was hanging at a precarious angle, held in place by what appeared to be sheer determination and a few strands of Christmas lights. A small crowd of townspeople stood in a protective circle around the base of the tree, as if their presence could somehow prevent disaster. Someone needs to get up there and fix it, Alma murmured, but that tree's got to be 30 feet tall. As they watched, Sam hauled a tall ladder from his truck and began setting it up. Even from their elevated vantage point, Amelia could see that the ladder wasn't quite tall enough to reach the problematic star safely. "He's not going to try to climb that, is he?" she asked, though Sam was already testing the ladder's stability. "Oh, that man." Alma shook her head. "He'll risk life and limb to make sure Christmas is perfect for everyone else." Without quite knowing why, Amelia found herself heading for the stairs. "I'll be right back." "Where are you going, dear?" "To tell him he's being ridiculous," she called over her shoulder. Already halfway down to the bakery's main floor, she burst through the front door into the crisp December air, her breath forming small clouds as she hurried across the square. The crowd around the tree had grown larger, and she could hear fragments of worried conversation. "Ladder's not tall enough. Should call the fire department. Just wait until spring." "It's fine," Sam was saying as she approached. "I can reach it if I'm careful." "Sam Miller, you get down from there this instant." The voice belonged to Alexia Thompson, a woman with graying hair and the authoritative tone of someone used to managing children. "That ladder is wobbling like a bowl of jelly." "The pageant is in 5 days," Sam replied, climbing another rung despite the protests. "We can't have a crooked star. We can't have a dead carpenter either." Someone called out, "Dad!" Melanie's voice was high with worry. "Please don't fall." Amelia pushed through the crowd until she reached the base of the tree. Sam was now about 20 feet up the ladder, reaching toward the star with one hand while gripping the ladder with the other. From this angle, she could see what the others couldn't. The ladder was set up on uneven ground, and each movement Sam made caused it to shift slightly. "This is insane," she said loudly enough for him to hear. Sam looked down, and for a moment their eyes met. "Amy, what are you doing here?" "Trying to prevent you from becoming a Christmas casualty." She looked around at the concerned faces surrounding them. "Isn't there a safer way to do this? Not without the fire department's ladder truck, and they're dealing with a kitchen fire across town," Mayor Collins explained. "Sam's the only one tall enough and foolish enough to try." "I'm not foolish," Sam called down. His words were cut off as the ladder swayed alarmingly. Several people in the crowd gasped, and Melanie let out a small cry of fear. "That's it," Amelia said firmly. "You're coming down. Now, I can reach it. Samuel Miller." The sharpness in her voice surprised everyone, including herself. It was the tone she used when addressing obstinate diplomats or unruly courtiers, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Get down from that ladder immediately." Sam stared at her for a moment, clearly taken aback by her sudden authority. Then, slowly, he began to descend. "Thank you," Alexia Thompson murmured approvingly. Someone needed to talk sense into him. When Sam reached the ground, his expression was a mixture of frustration and curiosity. "Feel better?" "Much," Amelia replied. "Now let's figure out a way to fix this that doesn't involve defying gravity." "I'm open to suggestions." Amelia studied the tree, her artistic training automatically assessing angles, proportions, and structural challenges. "What if we don't try to reach the star from below?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we approach it from above?" She pointed toward the second-story windows of the buildings surrounding the square. "If we could get a rope from one of those windows to the star, we could stabilize it long enough for someone to make repairs." Sam followed her gaze, his expression thoughtful. "That might actually work, but we'd need someone with climbing experience and the right equipment. I might be able to help with that." The voice came from behind them, and Amelia turned to see Prince Andrew approaching, his cashmere coat pristine despite the snow. He moved with the confident stride of someone who expected attention and deference. "Your Highness," Mayor Collins practically vibrated with excitement. "Welcome to Hollyberry Lane, though I'm afraid you've arrived in the middle of a small crisis." "So I see." Andrew's gaze moved from the tree to the gathered crowd, then settled on Amelia with unmistakable recognition. "Miss Winters, isn't it? What a delightful surprise to encounter you here." Amelia felt every eye in the crowd turn toward her. "Your Highness." "Yes, what a coincidence." "Indeed." Andrew's smile was practiced and charming. I have some rock climbing experience, and I believe my luggage includes appropriate gear. Perhaps I could be of assistance? That's very generous, Sam said, though his tone was carefully neutral. Though I'm not sure we should ask a visitor to risk. Nonsense! Andrew's laugh was perfectly calibrated for public charm. What better way to experience authentic American Christmas traditions than by participating in them? Besides, I'm sure Miss Winters would agree that sometimes one must take calculated risks for the greater good. There was something in the way he said it that made Amelia's stomach tighten. Was he testing her, seeing how she'd respond to being put on the spot? Of course, she said carefully, though perhaps we should ensure all safety precautions are taken, naturally. Andrew's gaze lingered on her face for a moment longer than necessary. One wouldn't want any accidents. 20 minutes later, they'd assembled an unlikely rescue team. Andrew had indeed produced professional climbing gear from his luggage, along with the casual revelation that he'd been trained in mountain rescue techniques during his military service. Sam had contributed rope, pulleys, and an engineer's understanding of physics. Mayor Collins had provided crowd control and increasingly dramatic commentary. This is better than cable television, Della Sanders observed from her position near the bakery entrance. The plan was relatively simple. Andrew would rappel from the roof of the two-story hardware store, secure a stabilizing rope to the star, and then Sam would use the extension ladder to make the actual repairs while the tree was held steady. Are you sure about this? Amelia asked Andrew as he checked his harness one final time. Quite sure. Though I must say, this isn't exactly the Christmas activity I expected when I agreed to visit your charming town. It's not my town, she replied automatically. Isn't it? Andrew's smile was enigmatic. You seem quite invested in its Christmas traditions. Before she could respond, he was climbing toward the roof with the fluid grace of someone who'd done this many times before. Whatever else could be said about Prince Andrew, he was clearly competent. He's very capable, Sam observed, standing beside her as they watched Andrew set up his anchoring system. Yes, he is. Friend of yours? The question was casual, but Amelia caught the undercurrent of curiosity. We've met before, socially. Right. European social circles being what they are. Something like that. They watched in relative silence as Andrew executed the descent with textbook precision. Within minutes, he'd secured the stabilizing rope and given Sam the all-clear to ascend the ladder. Much better, Sam called down as he worked on the star's mounting bracket. Steady as a rock now. Glad to help? Andrew replied, then turned to Amelia with a meaningful look. Miss Winters, perhaps we could have a word while Mr. Miller completes his repairs? It wasn't really a request, and they both knew it. Amelia followed Andrew to a quieter corner of the square, acutely aware that half the town was watching their interaction with barely concealed curiosity. Amelia, Andrew said quietly, dropping the formal pretense now that they had relative privacy. What exactly are you doing here? The same thing you are, presumably. Learning about authentic Christmas traditions. Are you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're playing house with the local carpenter. Heat flashed through her. I'm participating in community activities, as instructed. Instructed by whom? Your parents certainly didn't send you here to develop feelings for common laborers. I haven't developed feelings for anyone, she said sharply, and Sam Miller is a skilled craftsman and devoted father, not a common laborer. Andrew's eyebrows rose. How protective you sound. One might almost think you've grown fond of him. I'm fond of everyone I've met here. They're good people. Good people, yes, but hardly suitable companions for the crown princess of Eldovia. The reminder of her real identity felt like a splash of cold water. Around them, the people of Hollyberry Lane continued their Christmas preparations, blissfully unaware that they were hosting not one but two members of European royalty. I'm aware of who I am, she said quietly. Are you? Because your behavior suggests otherwise. Andrew's voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. Amelia, I understand the appeal of this. Fantasy. The simple life, the honest work, the charming community spirit, but that's all it is. a fantasy. Your real life, your real responsibilities are waiting for you back home." "My real life," she repeated slowly. "Yes. Treaty negotiations, diplomatic functions, the marriage that will secure our kingdom's alliance." Andrew stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The marriage between us specifically." Amelia felt the walls of her temporary freedom closing in around her. "Is that what this is? An ultimatum?" "It's a reminder. You're here to learn about Christmas traditions, not to complicate our arrangement with romantic entanglements." "Our arrangement?" The words came out sharper than she'd intended. "Yes, our arrangement, the one your parents and mine have been negotiating for months." Andrew's expression softened slightly. "Amelia, I'm not unreasonable. I understand that you need to work through whatever this is. But don't lose sight of reality in the process." Before she could respond, a cheer went up from the crowd around the Christmas tree. Sam was climbing down from the ladder, and the star above them shone straight and true, no longer threatening to crash down on unsuspecting carolers. "Excellent work," Mayor Collins boomed, clapping his hands together. "Both of you. This is exactly the kind of cooperation and community spirit that makes Christmas special." As the crowd began to disperse, Sam approached them, coiling his rope with practiced efficiency. "Thank you," he said to Andrew, extending his hand. "That could have been a disaster without your help." "My pleasure," Andrew replied, accepting the handshake with diplomatic grace. "Though I must say, your dedication to perfection is impressive. Most people would have simply lived with a crooked star." "Most people don't understand that details matter," Sam replied, "especially at Christmas." "Indeed." Andrew's gaze shifted meaningfully to Amelia. "Though I suppose the challenge is knowing which details truly matter, and which are merely distractions." There was a moment of silence as both men seemed to size each other up. Amelia had the uncomfortable feeling that she was the subject of some unspoken communication between them. "Well," she said brightly, stepping between them before the tension could escalate further, "I should get back to Lady Margaret. She'll be wondering where I've disappeared to." "Of course," Andrew said smoothly. "Perhaps we could have dinner together this evening? I'd be delighted to hear more about your cultural observations." "That sounds lovely," she replied, though the words felt like ash in her mouth. As Andrew walked away toward the bed and breakfast, Sam watched him go with a thoughtful expression. "He seems very interested in you," he observed. "We're old friends." "Right, old friends." Sam's tone was carefully neutral, the kind of old friends who use formal titles and discuss arrangements. Amelia's heart skipped. "You heard that?" "Hard not to." "You were standing 10 feet away." Sam finished coiling his rope and slung it over his shoulder. "Amy, I don't know what's going on between you two, but—" "There's nothing going on," she said quickly. "Andrew is just complicated." "Complicated how?" "Complicated in ways I can't really explain." Sam studied her face for a long moment. "You know, when Elena was sick, she used to say that the worst part wasn't the pain or the fear. It was the feeling that she was living someone else's life, going through the motions of treatments and appointments and conversations, but not really being herself anymore." Amelia felt her chest tighten. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have that same look sometimes, like you're going through the motions of being someone you're not." Sam's voice was gentle, but his words were like arrows finding their mark. "And I can't help wondering who Amy Winters really is underneath all that careful politeness." For a moment, she considered telling him. The truth pressed against her lips like a physical weight, that she was Princess Amelia of Eldovia, that Prince Andrew was her intended fiancé, that her entire presence in Hollyberry Lane was an elaborate charade designed to teach her about authentic Christmas traditions before she settled into a life of royal duty and diplomatic marriage. But then she imagined the way Sam would look at her when he learned the truth, the careful distance that would replace his growing warmth, the polite formality that would replace their easy conversations, the confirmation of every prejudice he'd expressed about privilege and authenticity. "I'm just someone trying to figure out what Christmas really means," she said instead. "Isn't that enough?" Sam was quiet for so long that she thought he might press her further. Then slowly he nodded. "Yeah," he said softly, "I guess it is. But as she walked back toward the bakery, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she just lost something important, some connection that had been building between them, some possibility that was now foreclosed by her inability to be honest about who she really was. Above them, the Christmas star shone steadily in the afternoon light, pointing toward a truth she wasn't brave enough to embrace. Dinner with Prince Andrew was exactly as excruciating as Amelia had anticipated. He'd chosen the town's only upscale restaurant, a converted Victorian house with white tablecloths and a wine list that seemed wildly out of place in Hollyberry Lane. Throughout the meal, he'd maintained perfect diplomatic charm, while making it clear that he expected her to remember her duties and obligations. "The alliance between our kingdoms has been years in the making," he said over dessert, his voice low enough that other diners couldn't overhear. "Your parents are counting on this, Amelia. My parents are counting on this." "I understand the political implications," she replied, pushing her untouched crème brûlée around on its plate. "Do you? Because your behavior suggests otherwise." Andrew leaned forward slightly. "Flirting with local craftsmen, involving yourself in small-town politics, acting like you belong here. None of this is conducive to our future together." "I wasn't aware that showing basic human kindness was incompatible with royal duty. Don't be naive. Everything we do is political, whether we intend it or not." Andrew's smile was pleasant, but his eyes were calculating. "The people here see you as Amy Winters, mysterious visitor from England. But what happens when they discover you're actually Princess Amelia of Eldovia? What happens when they realize you've been lying to them this entire time?" The question hit her like a physical blow, because she'd been asking herself the same thing. Every conversation with Sam, every moment of genuine connection with the townspeople, was built on a foundation of deception. "I wasn't lying," she said weakly. "I was just using a different name, a different background, a different life story." "What would you call that if not lying?" Amelia had no good answer, so she said nothing. "I'm not trying to be cruel," Andrew continued, his voice gentling slightly. "I'm trying to be realistic. This fantasy you're living, it has an expiration date. In 10 days, we'll return to Eldovia for the Christmas ball. You'll resume your royal duties. We'll announce our engagement, and life will continue as planned. As planned by whom? By people much wiser than us, who understand the greater good." After dinner, Amelia walked slowly back to the bakery, her mind churning with Andrew's words. The town square was quieter now, most of the pageant preparations finished for the day. String lights twinkled in the darkness, and the repaired Christmas star cast a warm glow over the snow-covered ground. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the light in Sam Miller's workshop until she was directly across from it. Through the large windows, she could see him working at a table, carefully sanding what appeared to be a wooden figure. The scene was so peaceful, so focused, that she found herself stopping to watch. This was what Andrew didn't understand. The quiet satisfaction of creating something with your own hands, the meditation of honest work, the connection between craft and community. Sam wasn't just building props for a Christmas pageant. He was creating a gift for his neighbors, a contribution to their shared celebration. As if sensing her presence, Sam looked up from his work. For a moment they stared at each other through the glass, she on the sidewalk in her dinner dress and coat, he in his workshop surrounded by wood shavings and tools. Then he gestured toward the door. Amelia hesitated. She should go upstairs to her apartment, call her parents, and begin the process of mentally preparing herself for her return to royal duty. She should maintain appropriate distance from the complications that Sam Miller represented. Instead, she found herself walking toward the workshop door. "Evening," Sam said as she entered, his voice carefully neutral. "How was dinner?" "Fine," she replied, though they both knew it was a lie. The workshop was warm and smelled of pine and linseed oil. Wood shavings covered the floor, and tools hung in neat arrangements on the walls. It was clearly the space of someone who took pride in his craft, where every piece of equipment had its place and purpose. "What are you working on?" she asked, approaching the table where he'd been sanding. "Joseph." Sam held up the wooden figure, a man in simple robes, his face partially carved but not yet detailed. for the nativity scene. I carve new figures every year. Why new ones? Wouldn't it be easier to reuse the same figures? Sam was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing the smooth wood. Elena started the tradition. She said that every year the story should feel fresh, immediate, like it's happening for the first time. Amelia studied the figure in his hands. Even unfinished, there was something powerful about it, a sense of weight and purpose, of a man facing something larger than himself. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the figure. Sam handed it to her, and she turned it carefully in her hands, feeling the grain of the wood, the precision of the carving. "This is beautiful work. The proportions, the way you've suggested the weight of his robes, it's masterful." "Thank you." Sam's voice was soft, surprised. Most people just see a wooden doll. Most people don't know how to look. Amelia set the figure down gently. "This isn't just craft, it's art. You're creating something that will help people connect with a story that's 2,000 years old. That's the idea. Elena always said." He stopped, shaking his head. What did Elena always say? That art should be a bridge between the sacred and the everyday, between the past and the present, between people. Sam picked up his sandpaper, then set it down again. "She would have liked you." The simple statement hit Amelia harder than any of Andrew's political maneuvering. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." She had the same way of seeing things, really seeing them, not just looking. Sam's gaze met hers. "The same way of caring about details that other people miss. Like crooked Christmas stars?" "Like crooked Christmas stars," he agreed with a small smile. "And the fact that Coulter needed to feel important in the pageant, and the way you helped Melanie with her painting without making her feel stupid." Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Those were small things. Small things matter, especially at Christmas. Sam leaned against his workbench, studying her face. "Amy, can I ask you something?" Her heart rate picked up. "Of course. Are you happy?" The question was so simple, so direct, that for a moment she couldn't answer. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd asked herself? "I don't know," she said finally. "I'm not sure I remember what happy feels like. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." "Is it? I have everything most people want. Security, comfort, purpose." "Do you have purpose, I mean?" Amelia thought about her life in Eldovia. The ceremonial duties, the diplomatic functions, the carefully scripted appearances. "I serve my country. That's not what I asked. It's complicated. Most important things are." Sam was quiet for a moment, then continued. "After Elena died, I thought my purpose died with her. I went through the motions, taking care of the kids, running my business, participating in community events, but it all felt hollow, like I was just existing." "What changed?" "The first Christmas pageant I organized, watching the whole town come together to create something beautiful, something meaningful, seeing my kids' faces when the story came alive on stage, realizing that Elena's vision, art as a bridge, could continue through me." Sam's expression grew thoughtful. "I guess I learned that purpose isn't something you have, it's something you choose. Every day. And if you're not free to choose?" "Everyone's free to choose, Amy. The question is whether you're brave enough to live with the consequences." Before she could respond, the workshop door opened with a blast of cold air. Melanie bounded in, followed more slowly by Coulter, both of them in pajamas and winter coats. "Dad," Melanie announced. "Coulter had a nightmare about the Christmas pageant. He thinks he's going to forget his lines and everyone will laugh at him." "I won't forget," Coulter protested, but his lower lip was trembling slightly. Sam immediately shifted into father mode, kneeling down to Coulter's level. "Hey, buddy, want to tell me about the dream? I was on stage and everyone was looking at me, but I couldn't remember what shepherds are supposed to say." And then the angel started laughing, and so did everyone else. "That sounds scary," Sam acknowledged seriously. "But you know what? I bet every person who's ever been in a Christmas pageant has had that exact same dream. Even you? Especially me. When I was about your age, I played a wise man in our church pageant. I was so nervous I threw up on my costume right before we went on stage. Did everyone laugh? Well, it was pretty funny. But you know what happened? Everyone helped. Someone found me a new costume. Someone else helped me clean up. And the other wise men reminded me of my lines when I forgot them. Sam smoothed Coulter's hair back from his forehead. That's what communities do. They help each other, especially during Christmas. What if I still forget? Then we'll help you remember. That's what families do. Amelia watched this exchange with a growing ache in her chest. This was what she'd never had. The patient attention of a parent who had time to address her fears, the security of unconditional love, the knowledge that someone would always be there to help her remember her lines. Amy! Melanie suddenly noticed her presence. Are you helping Dad with the Joseph figure? Just admiring his work, Amelia replied, forcing a smile. Dad's the best carver in the whole state, Melanie announced proudly, maybe the whole country. That might be a slight exaggeration, Sam said dryly. It's not an exaggeration if it's true, Coulter argued. Tyler Morrison's dad can't even make a birdhouse without it falling apart. Different people have different talents, Sam replied diplomatically. Mr. Morrison is an excellent accountant. Boring, Melanie declared. Necessary, Sam corrected. Everyone contributes something different to the community. That's what makes it work. What does Amy contribute? Coulter asked with the devastating directness of childhood. All three Millers looked at her expectantly, and Amelia felt panic flutter in her chest. What did she contribute? What had she ever contributed to any community? I'm still figuring that out, she said honestly. That's okay, Melanie said kindly. Grown-ups are allowed to not know things sometimes. Thanks for the permission, Amelia replied, genuinely touched by the child's generosity. You could help us practice, Coulter suggested suddenly. For the pageant. You could be the audience, and if we forget our lines, you could help us remember, Sam started to protest. Kids, Amy doesn't need to. I'd love to, Amelia interrupted, surprising herself. If you think it would help. Really? Both children lit up with excitement. Really, though I should warn you, I don't know much about Christmas pageants. That's okay, Melanie said confidently. We'll teach you everything you need to know. For the next hour, Amelia found herself in the middle of an impromptu pageant rehearsal. Melanie played the angel Gabriel with dramatic flair, complete with elaborate wing gestures and a voice that could probably be heard 3 counties away. Coulter practiced his shepherd lines with increasing confidence, especially after Amelia helped him work out a special sequence for presenting his discovered gold to the baby Jesus. Sam watched from his workbench, occasionally offering direction, but mostly just observing his children's enthusiasm. There was something peaceful about his expression, a contentment that Amelia recognized as the look of a parent watching his children be simply, joyfully themselves. And then the star appears, Melanie announced, gesturing dramatically toward the workshop ceiling. And everyone follows it to Bethlehem. What happens when they get there? Amelia asked. They see the baby Jesus and they understand that everything's different now, Coulter replied seriously. That's the most important part. How is everything different? Well, Melanie said thoughtfully. Before Jesus was born, people thought God was far away and scary. But then God became a baby, which means God understands what it's like to be little and scared and need help. And God understands what it's like to have a family, Coulter added, and to live in a community where everyone takes care of each other. Amelia felt something shift inside her chest, a recognition, perhaps, of the profound truth these children understood so naturally. The Christmas story wasn't about divine power imposing itself from above. It was about love choosing vulnerability, about the sacred becoming intimately human. That's beautiful, she said softly. That's Christmas, Sam said from across the room. God choosing to be with us, in all our messiness and confusion and everyday struggles. Is that what you believe? She asked. It's what I hope, Sam replied. It's what keeps me going on the hard days. Their eyes met across the workshop, and Amelia felt something pass between them, an understanding, perhaps, or a recognition of shared longing. For a moment, the careful barriers she'd constructed around her heart wavered. Then Melanie yawned hugely, and the spell was broken. Time for bed, Sam announced, standing up from his workbench. Come on, you two, say goodnight to Amy. Both children hugged her with the unself-conscious affection of childhood. and Amelia felt tears threaten as she hugged them back. When was the last time she'd been hugged without protocol or agenda, just because someone wanted to show her kindness? "Will you come watch the real pageant?" Coulter asked as Sam herded them toward the door. "I wouldn't miss it," she promised. After they left, the workshop felt too quiet, too empty. Amelia stood among the wood shavings and tools, breathing in the scent of pine and trying to process everything she'd experienced. "Thank you," Sam said, returning from walking the children home, "for helping with their practice. They were really nervous about performing. They're wonderful children. You should be very proud." "I am." Sam began cleaning up his workspace, putting tools away with practiced efficiency. "They're the best thing Elena and I ever did together. She would be proud, too, of them and of you." Sam paused in his cleaning, a chisel halfway to its proper place on the wall. "Some days I'm not so sure. Some days I feel like I'm just stumbling through, hoping I don't mess them up too badly. You're not stumbling. You're giving them exactly what they need: love, security, community, purpose. You're showing them that they matter. Is that what you needed when you were their age?" The question was quiet, almost casual, but Amelia heard the deeper current underneath. "I needed to know that I was more than just my circumstances, that someone valued me for who I was, not what I represented." "And did you know that?" Amelia thought about her childhood, the endless lessons in protocol and diplomacy, the careful management of her public image, the gradual understanding that her personal desires would always be secondary to royal duty. "No," she said simply. "I don't think I did." Sam set down the chisel and turned to face her fully. "Amy, I don't know what your circumstances are, and I won't pretend to understand your life, but I know this: you're one of the most genuine people I've met in a long time. Whatever you think you're supposed to be, whatever role you think you're supposed to play, the person you are right now, she's enough." The words hit her like a physical blow, not because they were harsh, but because they were exactly what she'd been longing to hear her entire life. She's enough. Not the crown princess of Eldovia, not a potential alliance maker, not a diplomatic asset. Just her, Amy, Amelia, whoever she really was underneath all the titles and expectations. "I should go," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "Amy, thank you. For tonight, for letting me help with the children. For..." She gestured helplessly around the workshop, trying to encompass everything she couldn't say. "For making me feel like I belong somewhere." She was almost to the door when Sam's voice stopped her. "You do belong somewhere. The question is whether you're brave enough to claim it." Amelia paused with her hand on the doorknob, Prince Andrew's words echoing in her memory. "Everyone's free to choose. The question is whether you're brave enough to live with the consequences." But as she walked back to the bakery through the snow-covered streets of Hollyberry Lane, all she could think about was Sam's steady presence, his children's easy affection, and the growing certainty that whatever choice she made, it was going to break something important. The only question was what and whom she was willing to sacrifice. The next morning brought news that sent the entire town into a frenzy of excitement. A film crew from a national morning show was coming to feature Hollyberry Lane's Christmas pageant as part of their small-town Christmas magic series. Mayor Collins had been making calls since dawn, alternating between pure joy and nervous panic. "They'll be here this afternoon," he announced to anyone within earshot. National television. Can you imagine? Our little town on national television. Amelia watched the chaos unfold from her window seat at the bakery, nursing her second cup of coffee and trying to ignore the growing knot of anxiety in her stomach. A film crew meant cameras, which meant the possibility of being recognized. All it would take was one royal watcher with a keen eye to identify Princess Amelia of Eldovia hiding in plain sight in rural Vermont. "This is quite exciting." Lady Margaret appeared at her table, practically vibrating with nervous energy. "Though I must say I'm concerned about exposure." "You and me both," Amelia muttered. "Perhaps we should consider making ourselves scarce? A shopping trip to Burlington, perhaps?" Before Amelia could respond, the bakery door chimed and Sam entered, carrying what appeared to be an intricately carved wooden box. His hair was mussed and there were circles under his eyes, as if he'd been up all night working. "Amy," he said, approaching her table with obvious purpose. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course," she gestured to the empty chair across from her, acutely aware of Lady Margaret's curious gaze. Sam sat down and placed the wooden box on the table between them. It was beautiful work, smooth, polished wood inlaid with delicate patterns that seemed to flow like water. "I finished this last night," he said without preamble. "After you left. What is it? Look for yourself." Amelia lifted the hinged lid carefully, and her breath caught. Inside, nestled in red velvet, was the most exquisite nativity scene she'd ever seen. Each figure was no more than 3 inches tall, carved with incredible detail and painted with subtle, naturalistic colors. Mary's face was serene but alert, Joseph strong and protective, the shepherds rough but reverent. The baby Jesus was barely an inch long, but every tiny feature was perfect. "Sam," she whispered, "this is extraordinary. It's for you." His voice was quiet, almost hesitant, a Christmas gift. "I can't accept this. It's too... Please." He leaned forward slightly. "Amy, I know you'll be leaving soon. After Christmas. But I wanted you to have something to remember. This place. These people. Remember you mean." Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them seemed to shimmer with everything they weren't saying. "Yes," he said simply. "Remember me." Amelia's throat closed up. She traced one finger along the edge of the wooden box, feeling the smooth finish, the care that had gone into every detail. "How long did this take you?" 6 months. I started it last spring, after Elena's birthday. I didn't know who it was for at the time. I just knew I needed to make it. And now you think it's for me? I know it's for you." Sam's voice was steady, certain. "Elena used to say that art finds its way to the people who need it most. This was always meant to be yours." Lady Margaret cleared her throat delicately. "Perhaps I should give you some privacy?" "No, it's fine," Amelia said quickly, though her heart was racing. "Sam, this is beautiful, but I can't what? Accept a gift? Let someone care about you?" His voice was gentle, but there was an edge of frustration underneath. "Amy, what are you so afraid of?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. What was she afraid of? Being discovered? Disappointing her parents? Failing in her royal duties? Or was she afraid of this? This connection, this possibility, this chance at something real and chosen, rather than arranged and expected. "I'm afraid of lying to you," she said quietly, the words escaping before she could stop them. Sam's expression grew very still. "What kind of lying? The kind where everything you think you know about me is wrong. Try me." For a moment she wavered on the edge of confession. It would be so easy to tell him everything, her real name, her royal title, the reason she was really in Hollyberry Lane. But then she imagined his reaction, the inevitable distance, the careful politeness that would replace this precious intimacy. "I can't," she said instead. "Not yet." Sam was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Everyone has secrets, Amy. The question is whether they define you, or whether you define yourself despite them." Before she could respond, the bakery door burst open with characteristic energy. Melanie and Coulter Miller tumbled in, followed by several other children, all talking at once about the film crew and the pageant and the incredible excitement of being on television. "Dad!" Melanie spotted Sam immediately. "Did you hear? We're going to be famous. Tyler Morrison thinks they might want to interview us." "I heard," Sam replied, his attention shifting to his children, even as his eyes remained aware of Amelia's presence. "Are you nervous?" "A little," Coulter admitted. "What if I mess up on television? Then everyone in America will see me forget my lines." "Then everyone in America will see a real little boy being brave," Amelia said gently, "which is much more interesting than a perfect performance." Coulter considered this seriously. "Really? Really? Perfect is boring. Real is beautiful." "See," Melanie said to her brother, "Amy knows about these things. She's sophisticated." "Sophisticated?" Sam's eyebrow quirked with amusement. Well, she is, Melanie insisted. She talks like someone from a movie, and she knows about art, and she always knows the right thing to say. Amelia felt heat rise in her cheeks. Out of the mouths of babes, Melanie had identified exactly what years of royal training had taught her to do. Maybe she's just had practice talking to people, Sam suggested diplomatically. What kind of practice? Coulter asked with the relentless curiosity of childhood. Diplomatic practice, Lady Margaret interjected smoothly. Amy worked for the Foreign Office before taking this sabbatical. It was a plausible cover story, and Sam seemed to accept it without question. But Amelia caught the slight narrowing of his eyes, the way he filed away this new information for later consideration. That explains a lot, he said mildly. Does it? The way you handle conflict, the way you speak with authority when you need to, the way you seem comfortable with complicated social situations. Like dinner with princes, Amelia thought, but didn't say aloud. The conversation was interrupted by Mayor Collins bursting through the bakery door in a state of barely controlled excitement. Sam, there you are. The film crew will be here in 2 hours, and they want to interview the pageant director. That's you. Are you ready? Do you need to change clothes? Practice answers. Oh goodness, what are we going to do about the children? Should they wear their costumes? Or regular clothes? Or... Jeffrey, Sam interrupted calmly. Breathe. Right, breathing. Good advice. The mayor took an exaggerated deep breath. But, Sam, this is huge. National exposure for our town, for our Christmas tradition, for a Christmas pageant that's supposed to be about celebrating the birth of Christ, not promoting tourism, Sam said dryly. Well, yes, of course, but surely there's nothing wrong with sharing our wonderful traditions with the wider world? As long as we remember what those traditions are actually about. Amelia watched this exchange with growing admiration for Sam's steady refusal to be swept up in the media excitement. While everyone else was thinking about image and exposure, he remained focused on authenticity and meaning. What do you think, Amy? Mayor Collins suddenly turned to her. As someone from Europe, do you think national television coverage will help people understand what American Christmas traditions are really about? It was a loaded question, and Amelia could feel Sam watching her response carefully. I think, she said slowly, that the best traditions are the ones that come from the heart, whether anyone's watching or not. Exactly. Sam's approval was warm and immediate. The pageant isn't a performance for strangers. It's our community telling a story that matters to us. But surely there's value in sharing that story? Lady Margaret suggested diplomatically. Of course there is. But sharing and performing are different things. One comes from generosity, the other from ego. And which do you think we're doing today? Amelia asked. Sam's gaze met hers, and she saw both warmth and challenge in his expression. I guess we'll find out. 2 hours later, Hollyberry Lane had been transformed into a carefully orchestrated media event. The film crew had arrived with impressive efficiency, setting up cameras and sound equipment around the town square. The director, an energetic woman named Patricia, who wore a headset and radiated professional competence, was organizing shots with military precision. We want authentic small-town Christmas magic, she explained to Mayor Collins, who was hanging on her every word. Real people, real traditions, real emotion. No staging, no artifice, just genuine holiday spirit. Amelia, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but appreciate the irony. A film crew staging authentic spontaneity, while she, an actual princess, hid in plain sight as a Foreign Office worker on sabbatical. Amy! Melanie appeared at her elbow, vibrating with excitement. They want to film the children practicing their songs. Want to come watch? I should probably stay out of the way, Amelia demurred. The last thing she needed was to end up on national television. Nonsense, Mayor Collins materialized beside them. Patricia specifically asked for audience members to make it feel more natural. You're perfect, engaged but not overwhelming. Before Amelia could protest, she found herself seated on a hay bale near the Christmas tree, watching as the children of Hollyberry Lane assembled for their televised moment. They were dressed in a mixture of costumes and regular clothes, looking exactly like what they were. Small-town kids excited about Christmas and nervous about cameras. Sam stood to one side, clearly uncomfortable with the media attention, but determined to support his community. When Patricia approached him for a pre-interview, Amelia could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing toward his children to make sure they were okay. "So, Mr. Miller," Patricia began, her tone bright and professional, "tell us about the Christmas pageant tradition here in Hollyberry Lane." "It's been going on for about 40 years, Sam replied. "Started by some church groups, evolved into a community-wide event. Everyone participates. Everyone contributes something. And you're the director this year?" "I organize the logistics. But really, it directs itself. The story's been the same for 2,000 years." Patricia smiled. "And what does this tradition mean to your community?" Sam was quiet for a moment, and Amelia could see him choosing his words carefully. "It means we remember that Christmas isn't about what we get, it's about what we give. It means we tell a story about hope showing up in the most ordinary circumstances. It means we create something beautiful together. Beautiful how? Beautiful because it's real, because it's imperfect, because it comes from people who care about each other and want to celebrate something larger than themselves." As he spoke, Sam's gaze found Amelia in the small crowd. There was something in his expression, a message, perhaps, or an invitation to understand what he was really talking about. "And how has organizing this pageant affected you personally?" Patricia pressed. "It's taught me that community isn't just about living in the same place. It's about choosing to care for each other, to share in each other's joys and struggles. It's about creating a place where everyone belongs. Even strangers? Even visitors? Especially strangers and visitors. Christmas is about radical hospitality, making room at the table, in the stable, in the community, for whoever needs a place to belong." Amelia felt tears threaten as the full weight of his words hit her. He was talking about her, she realized, about the place he tried to make for her in this community, despite her secrets and evasions and the barriers she'd erected around her heart. The interview continued, but she barely heard it. All she could think about was Sam's steady voice talking about radical hospitality, about making room for strangers, about creating beauty through imperfection and care. When the filming broke for lunch, she found herself walking aimlessly through the town, trying to process the growing certainty that she was falling in love with Sam Miller, and the equally growing certainty that loving him meant everything she'd built her life around would have to change. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Prince Andrew approaching until he was directly beside her. "Amelia," he said quietly, "we need to talk." "Not now, Andrew." "Yes, now. Before this goes any further." His voice was gentle but implacable. "I've been watching you today, watching the way you look at him, the way he looks at you. This has gone beyond harmless flirtation. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. You're falling in love with him." The words hung between them, stark and undeniable. "And if I am?" she asked quietly. "Then you're forgetting who you are, what you owe to your family, your kingdom, your people." Andrew stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Amelia, I understand the appeal. He's handsome, principled, devoted to his community. Under different circumstances, he'd probably make an excellent husband. But circumstances aren't different. You're the crown princess of Eldovia, and he's a carpenter in Vermont. Even if you were free to choose, what kind of life could you have together? He'd never be accepted in royal circles, and you'd never be content in small-town obscurity. You don't know that, don't I? Look at yourself, Amelia. Look at how you've been living these past few days, hiding your identity, pretending to be someone you're not, lying to people you claim to care about. Is that the foundation you want to build a relationship on?" Each word was like a scalpel, precise and cutting, because Andrew was right about the lying, about the pretense, about the fundamental incompatibility between her real life and this Christmas fantasy. "What do you want me to do?" she asked wearily. "Come back to reality. Remember your obligations. Focus on the arrangement that will actually benefit both our kingdoms." "The arrangement," she repeated, "our loveless political marriage. Love can grow," Andrew said gently. "Respect, companionship, shared purpose. These are better foundations for royal marriages than passion. You know this." Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of centuries of royal duty pressing down on her shoulders. "And if I can't? If I can't just turn off what I'm feeling, then you'll have to choose. Him, or everything else. Your crown, your family, your country. Because you can't have both, Amelia. That's not how this works." When she opened her eyes, Andrew was watching her with something that might have been sympathy. "I'm not trying to be cruel," he said softly. "I'm trying to spare us both a great deal of pain. 'Cause if you choose him, you'll lose everything else. And if you choose duty, you'll lose him. Either way, someone gets hurt, including you." Andrew's smile was rueful. "Including me. Despite everything, I've grown quite fond of you over the years. I'd prefer not to spend our marriage watching you pine for someone else." After he left, Amelia stood alone in the town square, surrounded by the bustling preparations for the evening's filming. Children laughed, adults called out instructions. Christmas carols played from somewhere nearby. The whole scene was warm and joyful, and exactly the kind of authentic holiday magic the film crew had come to capture. But all she could think about was the choice Andrew had laid out so starkly: Sam or everything else, love or duty, her heart or her crown. As the afternoon light began to fade and the Christmas tree lights twinkled to life, Princess Amelia of Eldovia stood in the middle of the most genuinely happy place she'd ever been, and realized that sometimes the greatest gift Christmas could offer was also the most impossible one to accept. The evening's filming was magical in every way that mattered to the cameras. The children performed their carols with sweet, imperfect voices that tugged at heartstrings. The adults of Hollyberry Lane gathered around the Christmas tree with genuine warmth and community spirit. Even the weather cooperated, providing gentle snowfall that caught the lights and created the perfect Christmas card atmosphere. Amelia watched from the edge of the crowd, trying to memorize every detail. Sam conducting the children's choir with patient gestures, Melanie and Coulter beaming with pride as they sang. Della Sanders telling stories about Christmas pageants from decades past, Alma Ward distributing hot chocolate and sugar cookies to anyone who looked cold. This was what she would remember, she thought. Not the palaces or the protocol or the diplomatic dinners. This moment, this community, this glimpse of what Christmas could be when it came from the heart rather than obligation. Beautiful, isn't it? Lady Margaret appeared beside her, 2 steaming mugs in her hands. "Very." Amelia accepted the hot chocolate gratefully. "Thank you for covering for me earlier, with the Foreign Office story." "That's what companions are for, dear. Though I must say, maintaining your cover is becoming increasingly complex because of Sam." "Because of Sam," Lady Margaret agreed gently. "Amelia, I've known you since you were 12 years old. I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at that man. Is it that obvious? To someone who knows you well?" "Yes." Lady Margaret sipped her hot chocolate thoughtfully. "The question is, what do you intend to do about it?" Before Amelia could answer, Patricia the director called for everyone's attention. "We'd like to film one more segment," she announced. "Something about the meaning of Christmas in your community. We're looking for a few people to share their thoughts, what this season means to them, why these traditions matter." Several hands went up immediately. Mayor Collins, predictably, was practically bouncing on his toes with eagerness to speak on camera. But Patricia's gaze swept the crowd more thoughtfully. "What about you?" she said, pointing directly at Sam. "Mr. Miller, would you be willing to share your perspective?" Sam looked uncomfortable with the attention, but he nodded. "I suppose. Wonderful. And?" Patricia's gaze continued scanning the crowd. "What about our visitor from England? Miss Winters, isn't it? I'd love to get an outsider's perspective on American Christmas traditions." Amelia's blood went cold. "Oh, I don't think—" "Please," Patricia said, with the gentle insistence of someone used to getting what she wanted. It would be such a lovely contrast, the local perspective and the visitor's perspective. Really, I'd prefer not to. Come now, Mayor Collins interjected cheerfully. Don't be shy. We'd love to hear what you think of our little Christmas celebration. Amelia looked around desperately, but there was no graceful way to refuse without drawing more attention to herself. All right, but just briefly. Shh. Patricia beamed and began organizing the shot. Sam and Amelia were positioned near the Christmas tree, with the warm glow of lights creating a perfect backdrop. The irony wasn't lost on Amelia. Here she was, about to lie on national television while standing next to the most honest man she'd ever met. Just speak from the heart, Patricia instructed as the cameras rolled. Mr. Miller, what does Christmas mean to you and your community? Sam was quiet for a moment, his gaze moving over the faces of his neighbors and friends. Christmas means remembering that we're not alone, he said finally. It means choosing to take care of each other, especially when times are hard. It means believing that love is stronger than fear, that hope is possible, even in the darkest seasons. And how do you live that out practically? By showing up for each other, by making sure everyone has a place at the table, by choosing generosity over scarcity, community over isolation. Sam's voice was steady, genuine, by remembering that the Christmas story is about God choosing to be vulnerable, to be born into poverty and uncertainty. If that's how God chose to enter the world, then maybe that's where we're supposed to look for the sacred, in the ordinary struggles and joys of everyday people. Amelia felt her chest tighten as she listened. This was why she'd fallen in love with him, she realized. Not just his handsome face or his skill as a craftsman, but this, his ability to see the sacred in the mundane, his commitment to community over comfort, his gentle strength in the face of loss and difficulty. Beautiful, Patricia said softly. Miss Winters, what's your perspective as a visitor? What have you learned about Christmas in Hollyberry Lane? Every eye in the crowd was on her, including Sam's. Amelia felt the weight of their expectations, the trust they'd placed in her, the community that had welcomed her despite her deceptions. I've learned, she said slowly, that Christmas isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. It's about people choosing to be real with each other, to share their struggles and joys, to create something beautiful together, even when, especially when, circumstances are difficult. And how has that changed your understanding of the holiday? Amelia's gaze found Sam's, and for a moment, everyone else faded away. It's taught me that the most precious gifts are often the ones that cost us the most to give. Not money, but vulnerability. Not perfection, but honesty. Not independence, but the courage to let other people matter to us. That's lovely. And what will you take home with you from this experience? The question hit her like a physical blow. What would she take home? Memories, certainly. The nativity set Sam had carved for her. The knowledge that communities like this existed, that people like Sam existed, that Christmas could be something other than royal obligation and diplomatic maneuvering. But she couldn't take the thing she wanted most, the chance to belong here, to be part of this community, to build a life with Sam and his children. I'll take the memory of what Christmas can be when it comes from the heart, she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. When it's about love instead of duty, choice instead of obligation, Patricia seemed to sense that she'd captured something special. Thank you both. That was perfect. As the cameras stopped rolling and the crowd began to disperse, Sam approached her with a concerned expression. Are you all right? You look like you were about to cry. I'm fine, she lied, just moved by the evening. Amy, his voice was gentle but insistent. What's really going on? And don't say nothing. I can see that something's wrong. She wanted to tell him everything. The words pressed against her lips like water against a dam, desperate to break free. But before she could speak, Prince Andrew materialized beside them with diplomatic timing. Miss Winters, he said smoothly. Quite a lovely evening, Mr. Miller. Congratulations on a beautiful pageant. The children performed wonderfully. Thank you, Sam replied, though his attention remained focused on Amelia. I was hoping, Andrew continued, that I might have a word with Miss Winters. There are some travel arrangements we need to discuss. Of course, Sam said, stepping back. But his eyes remained on Amelia's face, searching for something she couldn't give him. I'll find you later, she told him quietly. Will you? There was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't entirely sure she would. Andrew led her away from the crowd, toward the quieter end of the town square. When they were out of earshot, his diplomatic mask slipped slightly. That was quite a performance, he said dryly. I wasn't performing, weren't you? All that talk about authenticity and honesty, while lying to everyone about who you really are? I didn't lie. Everything I said was true. Was it? Because from where I stood, it looked like a woman trying to convince herself that fantasy and reality are the same thing. Amelia wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. What do you want, Andrew? I want you to face facts. Tomorrow is December 23rd. In 2 days, we leave for home. In 1 week, your parents expect us to announce our engagement at the Christmas ball. I know what the timeline is. Do you? Because your behavior suggests you've forgotten that this is temporary. A holiday from your real life, not a replacement for it. And what if I don't want to go back? Andrew was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentler. Then you'll break your parents' hearts. You'll destabilize 2 kingdoms that are counting on our alliance. You'll abandon everything you were born to do, everything you've been trained for your entire life, for love, for infatuation, for a Christmas fantasy that can't survive contact with reality. You don't know that. Don't I? Amelia, even if Sam Miller could accept who you really are, which is far from certain, what kind of life would you have? You think you can just give up your crown and become a carpenter's wife in Vermont? People have given up titles for love before and lived to regret it. Do you know what exile really means? Not just from your country, but from everything that's ever defined you. No royal duties, yes, but also no royal resources. No palaces, no staff, no safety net. Just you, trying to build a life with a man who doesn't even know your real name. Each word was calculated to hurt, and they found their mark. Maybe that would be enough. Would it? When the cameras are gone and the Christmas magic fades and you're just another woman in a small town, married to a man who'll always wonder what else you lied about. When his children resent you for taking their father away from the memory of their mother. When you realize that loving someone and building a life with them are 2 very different things. Stop. Amelia's voice was sharper than she'd intended. I'm trying to save you from making a catastrophic mistake. By destroying any chance I have at happiness. By helping you remember what happiness really means for someone in your position. Duty fulfilled. Purpose served. The satisfaction of knowing you've contributed to something larger than yourself. Amelia laughed, but there was no humor in it. You sound like my parents. Your parents love you. They want what's best for you, for the kingdom, for the future you were born to shape. The future they chose for me before I was old enough to have an opinion. The future that comes with responsibility, Amelia. You are the crown princess of Eldovia. You can't simply choose to be someone else because you've developed feelings for a commoner. The word hit her like a slap. Don't call him that. What else should I call him? He's not nobility. He's not royalty. He's a carpenter from Vermont who has no idea that the woman he's falling in love with is completely out of his reach. He's a good man who deserves better than to be dismissed because of his birth. I'm not dismissing him. I'm stating facts. And the fact is that if you pursue this, you'll destroy both your lives. Or maybe I'll finally start living mine. Andrew studied her face in the light of the Christmas tree, and something in his expression shifted. You're really considering this, aren't you? Giving up everything for him? I don't know, she admitted. I don't know what I'm considering. Then let me make it easy for you. Andrew's voice was very quiet now, very serious. Choose him, and you'll never see your family again. Choose him, and the alliance between our kingdoms falls apart. Choose him, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you made the right decision. And if I choose duty, then you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if. They stood in silence for a moment, both of them breathing clouds in the cold air, both of them knowing that the conversation had reached its inevitable conclusion. I need time to think, Amelia said finally. You have until Christmas morning, Andrew replied. That's when we leave for home. As he walked away, Amelia remained standing near the Christmas tree, surrounded by the lingering magic of the evening's celebration. Around her, the people of Hollyberry Lane were heading home to their families, their warm houses, their uncomplicated lives. She thought about Sam, probably putting his children to bed, reading them Christmas stories, tucking them in with the patient love of a devoted father. She thought about the nativity set he'd carved for her, sitting in her temporary apartment, like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Most of all, she thought about the choice that was no choice at all, between the life she'd been born to live and the life she'd only just discovered she wanted. Christmas was 2 days away, and Princess Amelia of Eldovia had never felt less festive in her life. Christmas Eve morning dawned gray and heavy with the promise of snow. Amelia woke before sunrise, her stomach churning with anxiety and the weight of her impending decision. In 18 hours, she would either be on a plane back to Eldovia to announce her engagement to Prince Andrew, or she would be. What? A former princess in hiding? A carpenter's girlfriend living under false pretenses? A woman who had destroyed 2 kingdoms' alliance for the sake of her own happiness? She dressed carefully in jeans and a simple sweater, clothes that Princess Amelia would never have owned, but that Amy Winters wore naturally. As she brushed her hair, she caught sight of Sam's nativity set on her dresser, the tiny figures illuminated by the pale morning light streaming through her window. The Christ child gazed up at her with painted eyes that seemed to hold infinite compassion. Born into poverty and uncertainty, Sam had said. If that's how God chose to enter the world, then maybe that's where we're supposed to look for the sacred. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Amy, dear? Lady Margaret's voice was gentle but urgent. Might I come in? Amelia opened the door to find her companion already dressed for travel, her usually perfect composure showing cracks of genuine worry. We need to discuss your plans, Lady Margaret said without preamble. Prince Andrew has informed me that you're reconsidering your return to Eldovia. He told you that? He's concerned, as am I. Lady Margaret sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded carefully in her lap. Amelia, I've served your family for 15 years. I've watched you grow from a rebellious child into a thoughtful young woman. I've never questioned your judgment before. But you're questioning it now. I'm terrified by it now. Lady Margaret's voice was quiet but intense. Not because I don't understand the appeal of this place, this man, this life. I do understand it. That's what terrifies me. Amelia sat beside her. What do you mean? I mean that 25 years ago, I was in love with a man who wasn't suitable for someone of my position. A journalist, intelligent and passionate, and completely dedicated to his work. He asked me to leave my position with your family, to marry him, to build a life together. What did you do? I chose duty. I stayed with your family. I served my purpose. I built a respectable life around royal service. Lady Margaret's smile was sad, and I've regretted it every day since. Amelia stared at her in shock. You never said anything. What was there to say? That I sacrificed love for obligation? That I spent 25 years wondering what if? That I watched you grow up and hoped you'd be braver than I was? Then why are you trying to talk me out of staying? Lady Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Because I've also watched what happens when royalty tries to abandon their responsibilities. I've seen the guilt, the isolation, the way that kind of choice corrodes everything it touches. Edward VIII, Margaret Rose, others who thought love could conquer the weight of duty. And they were miserable. Not immediately, perhaps, but eventually. Because you can't escape who you are, Amelia. You can run from it, deny it, pretend it doesn't matter, but it follows you. The knowledge that you abandoned your people, your family, your purpose, it colors everything else. Amelia felt tears threaten. So there's no good choice? There's no easy choice. But there might be a right choice, if you're brave enough to find it. Before Amelia could ask what she meant, footsteps thundered up the stairs and Melanie Miller burst through the door without knocking, her face flushed with excitement. Amy, you have to come right now. Something terrible has happened. What's wrong? Amelia was on her feet immediately. It's the Christmas pageant. The whole stage collapsed in the night because of the snow. Everything's ruined. Amelia and Lady Margaret exchanged glances, then followed Melanie down the stairs and out into the town square. What they found was indeed a disaster. The elaborate stage set that Sam had spent weeks building was now a twisted pile of wood and canvas, crushed under the weight of heavy snow that had fallen during the night. A crowd had gathered, and the mood was one of devastated disappointment. Children stood with their parents, looking at the wreckage of their Christmas pageant. Adults shook their heads and murmured about the impossibility of rebuilding in time for the evening performance. 20 years of Christmas pageants, Mayor Collins was saying, his voice heavy with defeat. And this is how it ends. We could try to salvage some of it, suggested Alexia Thompson. But her tone lacked conviction. There's not enough time, someone else replied. The pageant starts at 7. We'd need a miracle. Or we could cancel, another voice said quietly. Postpone until after Christmas, when we have time to rebuild properly. The suggestion hung in the air like a death knell. Amelia could see the defeat spreading through the crowd, the weight of crushed expectations settling over people who had devoted weeks to creating something beautiful together. No, Sam's voice cut through the murmur of disappointed conversation. He was standing near the wreckage, his expression determined. We're not canceling. Sam, Mayor Collins said gently, be reasonable. There's no way to rebuild this in time. Then we don't rebuild it. Sam's gaze swept over the gathered crowd. We do something different. Different how? Della Sanders asked. Sam was quiet for a moment, his eyes moving from face to face, seeing the hope and disappointment warring in each expression. Then his gaze found Amelia's, and something in his look made her heart skip. We tell the story the way it really happened, he said. Not on a stage, but here in the town, moving from place to place, involving everyone, making it real. I don't understand, Melanie said. A living nativity, Sam explained, his voice growing stronger as the idea took shape. We start at the bakery. That's the inn where there's no room. We move to the Miller workshop. That's the stable where Jesus is born. We end at the church. That's where the shepherds and wise men come to worship. But what about costumes? Sets? The script? Alexia Thompson looked overwhelmed. We improvise. We use what we have. We make it about the story, not the spectacle. Sam's expression was passionate now, energized by possibility. Elena always said the best art comes from limitation, from having to create something beautiful with whatever's at hand. Mayor Collins looked skeptical. Sam, I admire the sentiment, but we have families coming from 3 counties to see this pageant. We have national television coverage. We can't just wing it. Why not? Amelia surprised herself by speaking up. Why can't we wing it? Every eye in the crowd turned to her, and she felt a moment of panic. But then she saw Sam's face, saw the hope and determination there, and something inside her crystallized. I mean, she continued, her voice growing stronger, isn't that exactly what happened in the original story? Mary and Joseph didn't have a plan. The shepherds weren't expecting angelic visitors. The wise men were following a star they didn't understand. The whole Christmas story is about people improvising, adapting, finding ways to say yes to something bigger than themselves. Amy's right, Melanie said suddenly. The real Christmas wasn't perfect. It was messy and scary, and nobody knew what they were doing. Out of the mouths of babes, Della Sanders murmured approvingly. Sam stepped toward the center of the crowd, his expression serious but hopeful. Here's what I think we do. We divide into groups. Mary and Joseph start at the bakery, asking for room. The innkeeper, that's Alma, says no room, but offers the stable. Everyone follows them to my workshop, where we have the birth scene. Then the shepherds arrive, that's our kids, followed by the wise men. We end with carols at the church. What about the angel? Coulter asked. I want to see the angel. The angel can appear anywhere, Sam replied. Maybe the angel is whoever happens to be in the right place at the right time, saying the right words. Patricia, the television director, had been listening to this exchange with growing excitement. This could be incredible, she said. Completely authentic, unrehearsed, real community involvement. It's exactly what we came here to find. Or it could be a complete disaster, Mayor Collins muttered. Maybe, Sam agreed. But maybe it could be the most honest Christmas pageant we've ever done. Maybe instead of performing the story, we could actually live it. The crowd was quiet for a moment, weighing possibility against risk, hope against fear. I'm in, Alexia Thompson said suddenly. If we're going to fail, let's fail spectacularly. Me too, added the local pastor. The church doors are open. The bakery's ready, Alma called out. Though I should warn you, I'm a terrible actress. That's the point, Sam replied with a grin. We're not acting, we're just being ourselves in the middle of the Christmas story. One by one, the members of the community committed to the impossible plan. Children volunteered to be shepherds and angels. Adults agreed to play wise men and townspeople. Even some of the visiting families offered to help with whatever was needed. Amelia watched this transformation with growing amazement. In the space of 20 minutes, a community had gone from despair to determination, from defeat to creative possibility. And at the center of it all was Sam Miller, turning disaster into opportunity through sheer force of vision and heart. What about you, Amy? Sam asked, his gaze finding hers across the crowd. Are you in? The question was simple, but Amelia heard the deeper meaning underneath. Are you in? Are you part of this community? Are you willing to commit to something uncertain and imperfect and real? Yes, she said, and the word felt like a vow. I'm in. The next few hours passed in a blur of joyful chaos. The town transformed itself into a living nativity scene with remarkable creativity and efficiency. Alma rearranged the bakery to suggest an ancient inn. Sam's workshop became a stable, complete with borrowed hay and a wooden manger he'd carved years earlier. The church opened its doors for the final scene of worship and celebration. Costumes were improvised from bed sheets and bathrobes. Props were gathered from attics and craft closets. Scripts were abandoned in favor of heartfelt improvisation. Children practiced their roles by running through the snow. Adults tested their lines by calling them out to neighbors. Through it all, Amelia found herself at the center of the activity, helping with organization, offering suggestions, lending a hand wherever it was needed. For the first time in her life, she was part of something that required everything she had to give. Not her title or her diplomatic training, but her creativity, her energy, her willingness to take risks for the sake of something beautiful. You're good at this, Sam observed as they worked together to arrange hay in his workshop. Community organizing, I mean. I have some experience with logistics, she replied carefully. Right, the Foreign Office. But his tone suggested he wasn't entirely buying her cover story anymore. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, their hands occasionally brushing as they moved bales of hay and adjusted the lighting. The intimacy of the moment, working together toward a shared goal, creating something meaningful with their own hands, felt more precious to Amelia than any royal ball or diplomatic dinner she'd ever attended. Sam, she said quietly, not looking at him, what if this doesn't work? What if we embarrass ourselves on national television? Then we embarrass ourselves together, he replied simply. That's what community means, sharing the risks as well as the rewards. And that's enough for you? Sam paused in his work and looked at her directly. Amy, perfection is overrated. I'd rather fail at something that matters than succeed at something that doesn't. The words hit her like a revelation. How much of her life had been spent succeeding at things that didn't matter? Diplomatic protocols, social obligations, ceremonial duties that serve no real purpose beyond maintaining appearances. What matters to you? She asked. This, my kids, my community, creating things that bring people joy, being useful. Sam's voice was quiet but certain. What matters to you? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. What did matter to her? Royal duty? Family honor? Political alliance? Or this sense of belonging, this feeling of being truly useful, this connection to something real and immediate and human? Before she could answer, Melanie burst into the workshop with typical energy. Dad! Amy! It's time! Everyone's gathering at the bakery for the start of the pageant. All ready? Sam checked his watch. Where did the afternoon go? Time flies when you're having fun, Melanie replied with the wisdom of childhood. Come on! Tyler Morrison's dad is filming everything with his phone, and Mrs. Thompson says the TV people are ready. As they walked toward the bakery, Amelia felt a strange sense of finality settling over her. This was it. The Christmas pageant, the culmination of everything she'd experienced in Hollyberry Lane. After tonight, she would have to choose, return to Eldovia and her royal duties, or stay and build something new with Sam and his community. The crowd gathered outside the bakery was larger than she'd expected. Word had spread about the improvised pageant, and people had come from neighboring towns to witness this experiment in community theater. Patricia and her crew were set up discreetly, their cameras ready to capture whatever unfolded. Places, everyone, Mayor Collins called out, his earlier skepticism replaced by nervous excitement. Mary and Joseph, you're up first. A young couple from the local church stepped forward, their faces bright with nervous energy. They approached the bakery door and knocked, their voices carrying clearly in the crisp evening air. Please, the young man playing Joseph called out. We need a room for the night. My wife is about to give birth. Alma appeared in the doorway, her expression sympathetic but helpless. I'm so sorry, she said, and Amelia could hear the genuine regret in her voice. We're completely full. People have come from all over for the census. But surely you have something? Mary pleaded. Anywhere at all? Alma hesitated, looking out at the gathered crowd as if seeing them for the first time. Well, she said slowly, there's the stable behind the workshop. It's not much, but it's warm and dry. Thank you, Joseph said with heartfelt gratitude. Thank you so much. As the Holy Family made their way through the crowd toward Sam's workshop, Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. There was something profoundly moving about this simple exchange, the reality of human need meeting human compassion, the way ordinary people could become part of something sacred just by responding with kindness. The crowd followed Mary and Joseph through the snow-covered streets, their footsteps creating a soft rhythm against the white ground. Christmas carols hummed from various groups, creating a soundtrack of celebration that seemed to rise naturally from the community itself. At the workshop, Sam had transformed the space into something magical. Warm lights spilled from the windows, hay covered the floor, and the wooden manger sat ready in the center of the space. But it was more than just set decoration. It felt like a real stable, a place where tired travelers might actually find refuge. Here, Sam said to Mary and Joseph, his voice gentle. You're safe here. What followed was the most moving nativity scene Amelia had ever witnessed. Not because it was perfect. The baby Jesus was represented by a simple doll. Mary's costume was obviously a bathrobe, and Joseph forgot his lines twice. But because it was real, the young couple playing the Holy Family spoke their words with genuine emotion, as if they truly understood what it meant to be far from home, in need of shelter, facing the unknown together. When the baby was born and placed in the manger, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. Children pressed closer to see, adults wiped away tears, and for a moment, everyone seemed to understand that they were witnessing something sacred. Then Coulter and the other children burst onto the scene as shepherds, their excitement barely contained. We saw an angel, Coulter announced, his voice carrying clearly through the workshop. A whole army of angels. And they told us that a baby was born who would save the world. Where? Asked Joseph. Here, Melanie replied, stepping forward as the angel Gabriel. She was wearing a white sheet with tinsel for a halo, and her face was radiant with joy. Here in this stable, here in this town, here among regular people who were just trying to do their best. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause, and Amelia felt her heart swell with pride and love for these people who had created something so beautiful from what could have been disaster. The wise men arrived next, Mayor Collins, Pastor Jenkins, and Sam himself, carrying hastily wrapped gifts and following a battery-powered star that Coulter held high above the crowd. We've traveled far, Mayor Collins announced, his mayoral bearing lending dignity to his improvised costume, following a star that promised a new king. You found him, Mary replied softly, gesturing toward the manger. though he's not the kind of king you probably expected." "No," Sam said, looking down at the doll in the manger with genuine reverence. "He's better. He's a king who chooses to be with his people, not above them. A king who understands what it means to be vulnerable, to need help, to depend on the kindness of strangers." As the wise men presented their gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, represented by a jewelry box, a candle, and a small bottle of perfume, Amelia found herself thinking about what kind of king she wanted to serve. The kind who ruled from a palace, insulated from the struggles of ordinary people, or the kind who chose to be born in a stable, surrounded by shepherds and animals and the messy reality of human life? The pageant concluded at the church, where the entire community gathered to sing carols and celebrate the birth they'd just witnessed. Patricia and her crew captured it all, but Amelia barely noticed the cameras. She was too caught up in the joy of singing with people she'd come to love, celebrating something that felt genuinely sacred. As the final carol ended and people began to drift away to their homes and families, Sam approached her with a soft smile. "You were right," he said quietly. "About what? About this being better than the staged version? About the messiness being part of the beauty. It was your idea. It was our idea," Sam corrected. "You're the one who convinced everyone to take the risk." They stood together in the churchyard, surrounded by the lingering magic of the evening. Snow was beginning to fall again, soft flakes that caught the light from the church windows and created a scene of perfect Christmas peace. "Amy," Sam said, his voice suddenly serious. "Can I ask you something?" Her heart began to race. "Of course. Are you happy here? Really happy?" The question was simple but loaded with meaning. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Happier than I've ever been." "Then stay." The words hung between them, quiet but profound. "Sam, I know it's complicated. I know you have a life somewhere else, obligations, probably a career waiting for you. But Amy, what we have here, this connection, this community, this feeling of belonging, it's rare, it's precious, and I don't want to lose it." "What are you saying?" Sam stepped closer, his hands reaching for hers. "I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I want you to stay in Hollyberry Lane, to build a life here with me and the kids. I'm saying I want to wake up every morning knowing that you're part of this community, part of my family." Amelia felt tears streaming down her cheeks as the full weight of his words hit her. This was it, the choice she'd been dreading and longing for in equal measure. "Sam, there are things you don't know about me. Things that might change how you feel. Try me." For a moment she wavered on the edge of confession. It would be so easy to tell him everything. Her real name, her royal title, the political alliance that hung in the balance. But then she imagined his reaction, the inevitable questions, the way this precious moment would shatter under the weight of reality. "I can't," she whispered. "Not yet." Sam's expression grew puzzled, but not angry. "Amy, whatever it is, we can work through it. I love you, not your past, not your secrets, not whatever you think you're supposed to be. I love you." Before she could respond, a voice called out from across the churchyard. "Amelia." Both she and Sam turned to see Prince Andrew approaching, still dressed in his formal coat, but looking strangely diminished in the aftermath of the pageant's joyful chaos. "Andrew," Amelia said quietly, acutely aware of Sam's confusion at the use of her real name. "It's time," Andrew said simply. "The car is waiting." "Car?" Sam's voice was sharp with sudden understanding. "Amy, what's going on?" Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her deception settling around her like a shroud. "Sam, who is Amelia?" Sam's gaze moved between her and Andrew, his expression growing cold with realization. "That's your real name, isn't it? Amelia, not Amy." "Yes," she whispered. "And him?" Sam nodded toward Andrew. "He's not just some European acquaintance." "No," she said, her voice barely audible. "He's not." Prince Andrew stepped forward with diplomatic efficiency. "I'm Prince Andrew of Montemayor, and Amelia is Princess Amelia of Eldovia. We're engaged to be married." The words hit Sam like a physical blow. Amelia watched his face as the implications sank in. Not just that she'd lied about her name, but that she'd lied about everything. Her identity, her circumstances, her availability, her future. Princess, Sam repeated slowly. Sam, please let me explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for 2 weeks? That everything between us has been some kind of… What? Royal entertainment? No. The word came out sharper than she'd intended. No, that's not what this was. My feelings for you are real. Your feelings, Sam's voice was flat, controlled. And what about your engagement? Is that real too? Amelia looked at Andrew, then back at Sam, seeing the hope dying in his eyes. It's complicated. Complicated, Sam repeated. Right, like everything else about you. Sam, please. Please what? Please forgive you for making me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist. Please understand that you're engaged to another man. Please accept that you've been playing house with me and my children while you have a real life waiting for you somewhere else. Each word was like a knife, precise and cutting. Amelia felt herself fragmenting under the weight of his disillusionment. She didn't mean for this to happen, Andrew interjected, his voice carefully diplomatic. The situation evolved beyond its original parameters. Original parameters? Sam's laugh was bitter. What were the original parameters, exactly? Come to small-town America and see how the common people live? Study authentic Christmas traditions before you go back to your palace? The accuracy of his assessment made Amelia flinch. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? Because from where I stand, it looks exactly like that. Sam stepped back, creating physical distance that felt like an emotional chasm. You know what the worst part is? I actually believed you when you talked about authenticity, about choosing what matters. I thought you understood what this community means, what Christmas means. But you were just… What? Slumming? That's not fair? Fair? Sam's control finally cracked, and she could hear the pain underneath his anger. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been honesty. Fair would have been telling me you were engaged before I fell in love with you. Fair would have been not involving my children in whatever fantasy you were living. The mention of Melanie and Coulter made Amelia's chest tighten with guilt. I never meant to hurt them. But you did. You made them care about you, made them think you might stay, might become part of our family. And now what? You disappear back to your real life and leave them wondering what they did wrong? I could explain to them. Explain what? That you're a princess who was just visiting? That Daddy was stupid enough to fall in love with someone who was always going to leave? Sam shook his head. No, I'll handle it. I'll figure out how to explain to my children that people sometimes lie, that care isn't always real, that Christmas magic doesn't actually change anything. His words shattered something inside Amelia. Sam, don't do this. Don't let your hurt destroy what we have. What we have? Sam's voice was quiet now, deadly calm. What we have is built on lies. What we have is a princess playing at being ordinary and a fool who believed she actually cared. I do care. I love you. You love the idea of me. You love the fantasy of this life. But you don't love me enough to choose me. If you did, you'd tell your prince here to go home alone. The challenge hung in the air between them, stark and undeniable. Amelia looked at Andrew, then back at Sam, feeling the weight of two worlds pressing down on her shoulders. It's not that simple, she said weakly. It's exactly that simple, Sam replied. You choose, him and your royal obligations, or me and this life, but you can't have both, and you can't keep lying to yourself or to me about what this really is. Sam, the car is waiting, Andrew said quietly. Amelia, we need to leave if we're going to make our flight. Sam looked between them one final time, and Amelia saw the exact moment when his hope finally died. Goodbye, Princess, he said formally. Thank you for the educational experience. He walked away without looking back, his shoulders set with the dignity of a man who had been wounded but refused to be broken. Amelia watched him go, feeling like he was taking her heart with him. Come, Andrew said gently, placing a hand on her arm. It's time to go home, but as she followed him to the waiting car, past the Christmas tree with its repaired star, past the bakery where Alma had offered shelter to strangers, past the workshop where she'd found the deepest sense of belonging she'd ever known. Amelia realized that she no longer knew where home was supposed to be. The ballroom of the royal palace of Eldovia sparkled with the opulent grandeur of Christmas royalty. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Gold, leafed garlands draped every surface, and a 20-foot tree dominated the space, its branches heavy with priceless ornaments collected over centuries of royal Christmases. Princess Amelia stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the assembled nobility dance and converse with the practiced grace of diplomatic society. She wore a gown of midnight blue silk, her grandmother's emerald tiara catching the light as she moved. To any observer, she was the picture of royal elegance, poised, beautiful, perfectly fulfilling her ceremonial role. She was also miserable. "The Austrian ambassador is asking about trade agreements," Prince Andrew murmured as he appeared at her elbow, handsome in his formal uniform. "Shall I tell him to discuss it with your father?" "Please," Amelia replied, barely glancing at him. Their engagement had been announced 6 months ago, after a spring of careful courtship and public appearances designed to demonstrate their compatibility. The wedding was planned for June, and every detail had been arranged to perfection. The cathedral, the flowers, the guest list of European royalty. It would be the social event of the decade, cementing the alliance between their kingdoms and securing both their political futures. Amelia felt nothing about any of it. "You seem distracted tonight," Andrew observed, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Just tired. The season has been busy." It was true. The months since her return from Hollyberry Lane had been filled with an exhausting schedule of royal duties: charity galas, state dinners, diplomatic receptions, ceremonial appearances. She'd thrown herself into the work with desperate efficiency, trying to fill the hollow space where her heart used to be. "Perhaps after the wedding, we could take a proper honeymoon," Andrew suggested. "Somewhere warm and private, away from all the obligations." "That sounds lovely," she replied automatically, though the thought of a romantic honeymoon with Andrew felt like contemplating her own funeral. "Amelia," Andrew's voice was gentler now, concerned, "are you ever going to forgive me?" "For what?" "For bringing you home, for ending your American adventure." Amelia turned to look at him fully for the first time that evening. Andrew's face was serious, and she recognized genuine regret in his expression. "You did what you thought was right," she said carefully. "Did I? Because watching you these past months, seeing how you've diminished." "I'm not so sure." "Diminished? You used to argue with your parents about everything. You used to create art that challenged people, made them think. You used to have opinions, passions, fire." Andrew's voice was quiet, meant only for her ears. "Now you're perfectly compliant, perfectly appropriate, perfectly miserable." Amelia felt tears threaten and blinked them back. "This is who I'm supposed to be." "Is it? Because the woman I fell in love with," "Yes, I did fall in love with you, despite everything. She was complicated and challenging and alive. This version of you. She's like a beautiful ghost." Before Amelia could respond, her mother appeared at her side with the graceful intervention that only royal mothers could manage. "Darling, the photographer would like some pictures of you and Andrew by the Christmas tree," Queen Isabella said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course." Amelia allowed herself to be led across the ballroom, Andrew's hand formal and polite on her arm. The photographer, a distinguished man who'd been capturing royal family moments for decades, positioned them carefully in front of the magnificent tree. "Beautiful," he murmured, adjusting his lens. "The perfect royal Christmas couple." As the camera flashed, Amelia found herself thinking about another Christmas tree, smaller and less perfect, standing in a town square surrounded by people who had worked together to repair it when it threatened to fall. She thought about Sam Miller, steady and strong, risking his own safety to make sure the star shone straight and true. "Again, please," the photographer called out. "Perhaps a bit closer together?" Andrew's arm tightened around her waist, and Amelia forced a smile as the camera captured their supposed happiness for posterity. But behind her perfect royal expression, her mind was thousands of miles away, wondering what Christmas looked like in Hollyberry Lane this year. Did they still do the pageant? Had Sam built another beautiful stage? Were Melanie and Coulter still excited about playing shepherds and angels? Did anyone remember the princess who had spent 2 weeks pretending to be ordinary? Lovely, the photographer declared. These will be perfect for the New Year announcements. As they were dismissed, Amelia excused herself to the ladies' lounge, needing a moment away from the suffocating perfection of the ballroom. The lounge was mercifully empty, all gilt mirrors and velvet chairs that had witnessed generations of royal women stealing moments of private desperation. She sat heavily on one of the chairs and stared at her reflection in the ornate mirror. The woman looking back at her was beautiful, elegant, everything a princess should be. She was also a stranger. When had she stopped recognizing herself? When had she become this hollow version of who she used to be? A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting her lady-in-waiting or perhaps her mother checking on her welfare. Instead, Lady Margaret entered, closing the door quietly behind her. "You look beautiful tonight, dear," Lady Margaret said, settling into the chair beside her. "Thank you. You also look like you're attending your own execution." Amelia's laugh was hollow. "Perhaps I am." Lady Margaret was quiet for a moment, studying Amelia's reflection in the mirror. "Do you remember what I told you last Christmas? About the choice I made 25 years ago? You chose duty over love." "Yes, and I told you I'd regretted it every day since." "I remember. What I didn't tell you," Lady Margaret continued carefully, "is that I've spent this past year watching you make the same choice, and it's been like watching my younger self all over again." Amelia met her eyes in the mirror. "You think I made the wrong choice? I think you made the expected choice. Whether it was right or wrong, that's something only you can decide. It's too late now anyway. The engagement is announced, the wedding is planned, the alliance is secured. Is it? Too late, I mean? Of course it is. I can't just... What? Run away 3 days before Christmas? Abandon my duties, disappoint my parents, break the alliance between our kingdoms? You could," Lady Margaret said quietly. "It would be scandalous, certainly, complicated, definitely, but you could." Amelia stared at her companion in shock. "You're suggesting I call off my engagement? I'm suggesting you consider whether the life you're living is the life you want to live." Lady Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. "Because from where I sit, you've been dying a little more each day since you came home. My parents would never forgive me." "Your parents love you, Amelia. They want you to be happy. They want me to do my duty. Sometimes those things are the same. Sometimes they're not." Lady Margaret stood, smoothing her elegant dress. "The question is, which matters more to you? Their approval or your happiness? It's not that simple, isn't it? 25 years ago, I convinced myself it was complicated too. I told myself I was being noble, sacrificial, dutiful. But really, I was just scared." Lady Margaret moved toward the door, then paused. "Don't let fear masquerade as virtue, dear. You're braver than I was. Don't waste that courage." After she left, Amelia sat alone in the lounge for a long time, staring at her reflection and thinking about courage, about choices, about the difference between the life she was supposed to want and the life she actually wanted. Through the closed door, she could hear the sounds of the Christmas ball continuing: music, laughter, conversation, her world, her people, her duties waiting for her return. But all she could think about was a small town in Vermont where people created beauty together, where Christmas meant community and authenticity and the courage to choose love over fear. All she could think about was Sam Miller, and whether he ever thought about the princess who had lied to him about everything that mattered. Finally, she stood and smoothed her gown, preparing to return to the ballroom. But as she reached for the door handle, her phone buzzed with a text message. She almost ignored it. Royal protocol discouraged personal phone use during state functions, but something made her check. The message was from an unknown number, but the content made her heart stop. "Thought you might like to see this year's pageant. You were part of making it possible. A friend attached was a video file. With trembling fingers, Amelia opened the video. The screen filled with the familiar sight of Hollyberry Lane's town square, decorated for Christmas but different somehow, more elaborate, more confident. The camera panned across a crowd larger than last year's, people bundled in winter coats and gathered around a magnificent new stage. But it wasn't the stage that made Amelia's breath catch. It was the man standing in front of it, directing the final preparations with the same careful attention to details she remembered. Sam Miller. He looked older, perhaps, and there were new lines around his eyes. But he was still Sam, still steady, still focused on creating something beautiful for his community. As the camera captured him adjusting a piece of set decoration, he looked up briefly, and Amelia saw something in his expression that she'd never expected to see again. He was smiling. Not the careful, polite smile he'd worn when he said goodbye to her, but a real smile. The smile of a man who had found his way back to joy. The video continued, showing the pageant in all its imperfect glory. Melanie, now clearly a year older, played Mary with confident grace. Coulter had graduated to being a wise man, his face serious with the importance of his role. The whole community participated with the same generous spirit Amelia remembered, creating something beautiful together. At the end of the video, the camera captured a moment that made Amelia's heart clench with simultaneous joy and loss. A woman stepped into frame beside Sam, young, pretty, wearing a simple dress and a warm smile. She said something to him that made him laugh, a genuine laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Then, naturally, she slipped her hand into his. The video ended. Amelia stared at the blank screen, her chest tight with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Relief, perhaps, that Sam had found happiness again. Grief for what she'd lost. Regret for the choice she'd made. But underneath it all was something else. A kind of clarity she hadn't felt in months. Sam had moved on. He'd found someone who could give him what she couldn't. Honesty, presence, a shared life without the complications of royal duty. Someone who belonged in his world the way she never could. And seeing him happy, truly happy, made her realize something she'd been avoiding for a year. She wasn't mourning Sam Miller. She was mourning the version of herself she'd been when she was with him. Amy Winters had been authentic in a way Princess Amelia never could be. Amy had been free to choose, to contribute, to belong somewhere, because of who she was rather than what she represented. Amy had been real. The question was, could Princess Amelia learn to be real too? A second knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. This time it was her mother, elegant in burgundy silk and wearing the concerned expression that meant royal business. "Darling, people are asking where you've gone. Andrew is looking quite abandoned by the punch bowl." "I'm sorry, Mother. I needed a moment." Queen Isabella stepped into the lounge and closed the door behind her. "Amelia, what's wrong?" "You've been different since you returned from America. Distant, going through the motions. I've been doing my duty." "Yes, you have. Admirably so. But duty without heart is just performance, and you've never been a performer." The Queen sat beside her daughter, her voice gentle. "Talk to me. What happened in that little town that changed you so much?" For a moment, Amelia considered deflecting, giving the same careful non-answers she'd perfected over the past year. But something about her mother's genuine concern, combined with the clarity the video had given her, made her want to tell the truth. "I fell in love," she said simply. Queen Isabella was quiet for a long moment. "With Prince Andrew? No. With someone else. Someone." "Impossible." "The carpenter Andrew mentioned?" Amelia looked at her mother in surprise. "He told you?" "He told your father and me that there had been complications during your visit. We assumed it was a brief infatuation that would pass once you returned to your real life. It wasn't brief. And this is my real life, isn't it?" "This," Amelia gestured toward the door, toward the ballroom full of nobility and obligation. "This performance I've been giving for the past year. Is that what you think this is? A performance? Isn't it? I smile when I'm supposed to smile, say what I'm supposed to say, marry who I'm supposed to marry. But none of it feels real. None of it feels like me." Queen Isabella was quiet for a long time, studying her daughter's face. Do you remember when you were 7 years old and you announced that you wanted to be a baker instead of a princess? Despite her heavy mood, Amelia smiled slightly. You said I could be both. I did. And do you remember what else I said? That being a princess wasn't about the crown or the title. It was about service, about using whatever gifts and opportunities you have to make life better for other people. Exactly. And I've watched you these past months, darling. And I haven't seen service. I've seen compliance. There's a difference. Mother, let me finish. Your father and I have been so focused on securing your future, on making sure the kingdom was stable, that we forgot to ask the most important question. Are you happy? Amelia felt tears well up. Does it matter if I'm happy, I mean? Of course it matters. You're our daughter first, our princess second. We want you to have a life that brings you joy, not just duty. Queen Isabella reached for Amelia's hands. Tell me about him, this carpenter who made you real. So Amelia did. She told her mother about Sam Miller and his quiet strength, about Melanie and Coulter and their easy affection, about a community that had welcomed her, not because of her title, but because of her willingness to contribute. She told her about the Christmas pageant, about working with her hands to create something beautiful, about feeling useful and needed and genuinely happy for the first time in her adult life. He sounds wonderful, Queen Isabella said when Amelia finished. And it sounds like you broke his heart. I broke my own heart too. Then why didn't you stay? The question was so simple, so direct, that Amelia felt something crack open inside her chest. Because I was scared. Because I thought duty meant sacrifice. Because I couldn't imagine disappointing you and father. Oh, my darling girl. Queen Isabella's voice was thick with emotion. Do you think your happiness disappoints us? Doesn't it? If it means abandoning my responsibilities, breaking the alliance with Andrew's kingdom, causing a diplomatic crisis? Amelia, look at me. The Queen's voice was firm but loving. Your father and I have been married for 32 years. Do you know why our marriage works? Because you love each other, because we chose each other. Not because it was arranged, not because it was politically expedient, but because we genuinely wanted to build a life together. Queen Isabella smiled. The alliance came later as a happy bonus. But the foundation was love, not duty. But my engagement to Andrew can be dissolved, diplomatically, carefully, with appropriate consideration for his feelings and his kingdom's interests. But Amelia, if you marry a man you don't love because you think it's your duty, you'll make both of you miserable. Amelia stared at her mother in shock. You're telling me to break my engagement? I'm telling you to choose your life. Really choose it, with intention and courage and hope. Queen Isabella stood, smoothing her gown. But whatever you choose it soon. Living in limbo helps no one. What about father, the alliance, the kingdom's stability? Your father will be disappointed about the alliance, but he'll survive it. As for the kingdom's stability, darling, Eldovia has weathered far worse crises than a broken royal engagement. We'll adapt. And if I choose Sam? If I want to go back to Vermont? Queen Isabella smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. Then I suppose we'll have to figure out how to be a modern royal family, one that values happiness as much as duty, love as much as obligation. You'd really support that? My giving up the crown? Who said anything about giving up the crown? The Queen's eyes twinkled with something that might have been mischief. Princess Grace managed to be both royal and monegasque. I don't see why you couldn't be both royal and, what's the term, Vermonter? For the first time in a year, Amelia laughed, really laughed, with genuine joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her chest. Besides, Queen Isabella continued, perhaps it's time Eldovia had a princess who understands ordinary people. A princess who's actually lived among them, worked with them, loved them. Mother, you're being revolutionary. I'm being practical. The monarchy's future depends on its relevance to real people. Who better to ensure that relevance than a princess who's actually been real people? After her mother left, Amelia sat alone in the lounge for another long moment, processing everything that had just happened. Her mother's blessing, her father's probable acceptance, the possibility that she could have both love and purpose, both Sam and service, both authenticity and royalty. But first, she had to be brave enough to choose it. With hands that trembled only slightly, she pulled out her phone and sent a text to Lady Margaret. "Book me a flight to Vermont. Tonight, if possible." The response came back immediately. "Already done. Car leaves in 1 hour. I took the liberty of packing your warmest clothes." Amelia smiled through her tears. Some companions were worth their weight in gold. She stood, smoothed her gown one final time, and walked back into the ballroom. The Christmas ball was still in full swing, but now it looked different to her. Not like a prison, but like a familiar room she was choosing to leave. She found Andrew first, standing by the punch bowl exactly where her mother had said he'd be. "Andrew," she said quietly, "I need to speak with you, privately." Something in her tone must have warned him, because his expression grew very still. "Of course." They stepped onto one of the palace's ornate balconies, where the December air was crisp and clean and full of possibility. "I can't marry you," Amelia said without preamble. Andrew was quiet for a long moment, looking out over the palace gardens dusted with snow. "I know," he said finally. "You know, I've known for months. The question was whether you'd be brave enough to admit it." He turned to face her, and his smile was sad but genuine. "You're going back to him, aren't you?" "I'm going to try. I don't know if he'll forgive me, or if we can build something real together, but you have to try." "Yes." Andrew nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, Amelia, I think you're making the right choice. Not for our kingdoms, not for the alliance, but for you. And ultimately, that's what matters most." "I'm sorry, Andrew. I know this complicates things for you. I'll survive. And who knows? Maybe I'll find my own carpenter in Vermont." His smile was rueful but not bitter. "Or maybe I'll learn to be happy as a bachelor prince. Either way, I'll be fine. Thank you for understanding, for not making this harder than it has to be. Thank you for being honest." Finally, Andrew leaned over and kissed her cheek gently. "Go get him, princess. And if he's foolish enough not to take you back, send word, and I'll come beat sense into him with my royal scepter." An hour later, Amelia was in the back of a royal car heading for the airport, dressed in jeans and a warm sweater, her tiara replaced by a simple knit hat. Lady Margaret sat beside her, looking smugly satisfied. "You know," Lady Margaret said as they pulled away from the palace, "I should probably mention that I've been in touch with someone in Hollyberry Lane." "What?" Amelia turned to stare at her companion. "Who?" "Alma Ward, the baker. Lovely woman. We've been corresponding since your visit last year." "You've been corresponding with Alma? Why?" "Because I wanted to know how you were remembered there. Whether your impact had been positive or negative. And they speak of you very fondly. Amy Winters, the mysterious visitor who helped save the Christmas pageant. You're something of a local legend." Amelia felt her cheeks warm. "They don't know the truth about who I am. Some of them suspect. Alma, certainly. Della Sanders, definitely. But they don't care about your title, dear. They care about what you contributed while you were there. What about Sam?" Does Alma mention him?" Lady Margaret was quiet for a moment. "She mentions that he's been seeing someone, a teacher from the next town over. She seems nice enough, but Alma doesn't think it's serious." "The woman in the video." "What video?" Amelia showed Lady Margaret the video on her phone, watching her companion's face as she absorbed the images of Sam looking happy with someone else. Lady Margaret said thoughtfully. "You know, for a man who's supposedly moved on, he doesn't look at her the way he looked at you. How did he look at me? Like you were the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life." The flight to Vermont took 8 hours, including a connection in New York. Amelia spent most of it staring out the window, rehearsing what she would say to Sam when she saw him. If she saw him, it was entirely possible that he would refuse to speak to her at all. By the time they landed in Burlington, it was late afternoon on Christmas Day. The airport was nearly empty, most people already home with their families for the holiday. Amelia felt a pang of homesickness for her own family's Christmas traditions, then reminded herself that she was trying to create new traditions, better traditions, real traditions. Lady Margaret had arranged for a rental car, and they drove through the Vermont countryside in companionable silence. The landscape was beautiful in its winter starkness. Snow-covered fields, bare trees etched against the gray sky, small towns nestled in valleys like Christmas card scenes. "Are you nervous?" Lady Margaret asked as they neared Hollyberry Lane. Terrified, Amelia admitted. "What if he doesn't want to see me? What if I've waited too long? What if he's really fallen in love with someone else? Then you'll know you tried, that you were brave enough to choose love over fear, even if love doesn't choose you back. That's supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. Sometimes the trying is enough, even when the outcome isn't what we hoped for." As they crested the hill that led down into Hollyberry Lane, Amelia's breath caught. The town looked exactly as she remembered it, small, picturesque, covered in snow and Christmas decorations. But there was something different about it too, something more confident and established. "It looks prosperous," Lady Margaret observed. "The pageant." Amelia suddenly understood. After the television coverage last year, Hollyberry Lane probably became a Christmas tourist destination. Indeed, as they drove down Main Street, they could see evidence of the town's new status. The shops were bustling with visitors, the bed and breakfast had a sign advertising no vacancy, and there was a new restaurant called the Christmas Tree Inn that definitely hadn't been there the year before. But through it all, the essential character of the place remained unchanged. Children were still building snowmen in the town square. Families were still walking together, bundled in winter coats and carrying shopping bags. The Christmas tree still stood in the center of it all, its stars shining straight and true. Amelia directed Lady Margaret to park near the bakery, her heart pounding as she recognized the familiar storefronts. Through the bakery window, she could see Alma Ward bustling around behind the counter, her face rosy with warmth and exertion. "Wait here," Amelia told Lady Margaret. "I need to do this myself." "Of course, dear. I'll be right here when you need me." Amelia took a deep breath, pulled her knit hat down over her ears, and stepped out into the crisp Vermont air. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing in the scent of snow and pine and wood smoke, letting the reality of being back in Hollyberry Lane wash over her. Then she walked to the bakery door and pushed it open. The bell chimed, just as it had a year ago, and Alma Ward looked up from arranging cookies in the display case. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, surprise, and finally, joy. "Amy!" Alma exclaimed, then caught herself. "Or should I say, Your Highness?" "Amy is fine," Amelia said quietly. "Amy is perfect." Alma came around the counter and enveloped her in the same warm hug she remembered, smelling of sugar and vanilla and unconditional acceptance. "I knew it," Alma said, pulling back to study Amelia's face. "I knew there was something special about you. Though I must say, I wasn't expecting quite this level of special." "You're not angry that I lied?" "Honey, you didn't lie about anything that mattered. You were kind, you were helpful, you cared about our community. Those things were real, whatever your name happened to be." Amelia felt tears well up. "I've missed this place. I've missed all of you. We've missed you too. Especially," Alma trailed off, her expression growing concerned. "Amy dear, what are you doing here? It's Christmas Day, and I assume you have a life waiting for you back in Europe." "I had a life waiting for me. I'm not sure I want it anymore." Amelia took a shaky breath. "Alma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Of course, Sam Miller. Is he happy? Really happy?" Alma was quiet for a long moment, considering. "He's content," she said finally. "He's dating a lovely woman named Sarah Thompson. She's Alexia's cousin, teaches kindergarten in the next town over. She's sweet, uncomplicated, good with the children. But I don't think he loves her the way he loved you. And I don't think she challenges him the way you did." Alma's expression was gentle but honest. "Sam is a good man, Amy. He deserves to be happy. But I think part of him is still waiting for you to come back. Even after what I did, the lies, the deception. Even after. Because he's not stupid, dear. He figured out pretty quickly that whatever you were hiding, it wasn't malicious. It was just complicated. Is he here, in town?" "He's at the workshop, finishing up some custom orders for tomorrow. The children are with Sarah and her family for Christmas dinner. Alma paused. Amy, are you sure about this? Because if you're just visiting, if you're going to leave again, it might be kinder not to see him at all. I'm not just visiting, Amelia said, surprised by the certainty in her own voice. I'm here to stay, if he'll have me. If the community will accept me. The community will be thrilled to have you back. The question is whether Sam will be brave enough to trust you again. Only one way to find out. Alma smiled and squeezed her hands. Go to him, dear. And Amy, whatever happens, you're always welcome here. This is your home now, if you want it to be. The walk to Sam's workshop felt both endless and far too short. Amelia's heart hammered in her chest as she approached the familiar building, seeing warm light spilling from the windows and hearing the sound of careful work being done inside. She paused at the door, gathering her courage. Through the window, she could see Sam bent over his workbench, completely absorbed in whatever he was creating. He looked exactly as she remembered, strong, focused, completely present in his work. But there was something different too, something that might have been peace, or resignation, or simply the passage of time. Before she could lose her nerve, she knocked. The sound of work stopped. Footsteps approached the door. The handle turned, and there he was. Sam Miller, looking at her with an expression of such complex emotion that she couldn't begin to parse it all. Surprise, certainly. Hurt, definitely. But underneath it all, something that might have been hope. Amy, he said quietly. Then, with painful formality, Your Highness, please don't call me that. I'm still Amy. I'll always be Amy, at least here. Sam didn't invite her in, but he didn't close the door either. What are you doing here? I came to apologize, and to tell you the truth, all of it. It's been a year, Amy. A year since you left without a word, without explanation, without even saying goodbye to my children. The pain in his voice nearly broke her. I know I hurt you, hurt them. I was a coward. Yes, you were. The blunt agreement was somehow less painful than false comfort would have been. May I come in? Please? Just to explain? Sam hesitated for a long moment, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. The workshop was exactly as she remembered it. Warm, organized, smelling of wood and creativity, but there were new pieces displayed on the walls, new projects in various stages of completion. Life had gone on without her. You've been busy, she observed. Business has been good since the television coverage. Lots of people want handmade Christmas pieces from the authentic Vermont craftsmen. There was a slight edge to his voice. Ironic, really, considering how much I learned about authenticity last Christmas. Amelia winced but didn't deflect. Sam, I need you to know that nothing I felt for you was fake. My feelings, my care for your children, my love for this community, all of that was real. But everything else was a lie. Yes, my name, my background, my circumstances. I lied about all of it because I was scared, because I thought if you knew who I really was, you'd see me differently. A princess, Sam said flatly. You're actually a princess. I'm actually a woman who fell in love with a carpenter and his children and his community. The princess part is just genetics. Just genetics. Sam's laugh was bitter. Amy, you're not some minor European nobility. You're the crown princess of Eldovia. Your engagement to Prince Andrew was international news. Your life, your choices, they affect entire kingdoms. I know. I broke the engagement. Sam went very still. What? 3 hours ago, on Christmas Day, I told Prince Andrew I couldn't marry him. I told my parents I was coming here. I gave up my royal obligations to be here. With you, if you'll have me. You gave up your crown? For me? I gave up a life I didn't want for a chance at a life I do want. The crown. Well, that's complicated. My mother seems to think I can be both a princess and a Vermonter. But honestly, Sam, I don't care about any of that. I care about you. I care about Melanie and Coulter. I care about being part of this community in a real way. Sam was quiet for a long time, processing. What about Sarah? What about her? You know about Sarah. I know you've been seeing someone. I know she's nice and good with children, and that you care about her. I do care about her. She's a good person. Do you love her? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. I love her the way you love someone who's safe, Sam said finally. Someone who can't hurt you because you're not invested enough to be vulnerable. And me? How did you love me? I loved you the way you love someone you can't imagine living without. Someone who makes you better, challenges you, completes something in you that you didn't even know was missing. Sam's voice was quiet, honest. I loved you the way you love someone you'd choose again and again, even knowing it might destroy you. And now? Now I don't know what to think. You say you've given up everything for me, but how do I know you won't change your mind? How do I know that when the novelty wears off, when small-town life gets boring, when you miss your palaces and your diplomatic dinners, you won't decide you made a mistake? You don't know, Amelia said simply. You can't know. All I can do is promise you that I've spent a year learning the difference between the life I thought I wanted and the life that actually makes me happy. All I can do is tell you that I love you and ask you to give us another chance. What about my children? They cared about you, Amy. They were devastated when you left. How do I explain to them that you're back? How do I protect them if you leave again? You tell them the truth, that I'm a woman who made mistakes, who learned from them, who loves them and wants to be part of their family if they'll let me. And you don't protect them from risk, Sam. You teach them that love is worth the risk. Sam turned away from her, staring out the workshop window at the town square where they'd first worked together to save the Christmas pageant. I need time to think, he said finally. Of course, I'll be at the bakery. Alma's letting me stay upstairs again. Take all the time you need. She was almost to the door when his voice stopped her. Amy? Yes? Are you really planning to stay? Permanently? If you'll have me, if the community will accept me, if I can find a way to contribute something meaningful here. And your royal duties? I'm hoping I can find a way to serve both Eldovia and Hollyberry Lane, maybe be a bridge between them. Help my kingdom understand what authentic community looks like. Amelia paused. But Sam, even if I can't, even if I have to choose one or the other, I choose this. I choose you. She left him standing in his workshop, surrounded by the beautiful things he'd created with his own hands, and walked back through the snow to the bakery where Alma was waiting with hot chocolate and the kind of patience that only comes from a lifetime of watching people figure out their hearts. How did it go? Alma asked gently. About as well as could be expected. He needs time to think. Of course he does. You broke his heart, dear. It's going to take more than one conversation to mend it. I know. I just hope. I hope he'll give us a chance. He will, Alma said with confidence. Sam Miller is many things, but he's not a fool. And he's not the kind of man who lets love slip away twice. That evening, as Christmas Day faded into Christmas night, Amelia sat by her window watching the town settle into peaceful quiet. Families were home with each other, probably sharing stories and gifts and the particular magic that only Christmas could bring. She thought about her own family, celebrating Christmas without her for the first time in her life. She'd called them earlier, had a long conversation with her parents that was both tearful and hopeful. They'd been surprised by her decision, but not entirely shocked. Her mother had been right. They wanted her happiness more than her compliance. Give it a year, her father had said finally. See if this choice truly makes you happy. If it does, we'll figure out how to make it work for everyone. A year. That's what she had to prove that love could be stronger than duty, that authenticity could coexist with royalty, that Princess Amelia and Amy Winters could be the same person. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Melanie and Coulter Miller standing in the hallway, both of them wearing pajamas and serious expressions. Amy? Melanie said quietly. Dad said you came back. I did. Are you staying this time? Coulter asked. I'm hoping to. If your dad will forgive me for leaving. He already forgave you, Melanie said matter-of-factly. He forgave you a long time ago. He's just scared you'll leave again. What about you two? Are you scared I'll leave again? Both children considered this seriously. A little, Coulter admitted. But Dad taught us that being scared of something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means it's important. And we decided you're important, Melanie added. We missed you. And Dad's been sad, even when he pretends he's not. Amelia knelt down to their level. I missed you too, more than I can possibly tell you, and I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. That was wrong of me. It's okay, Melanie said generously. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too. But if you stay, Coulter said seriously, you have to promise not to leave without saying goodbye again, even if you're scared or sad or confused. I promise, Amelia said solemnly. If I ever have to leave, and I hope I won't, I'll say goodbye properly. Good, Melanie declared. Now come on. Dad's waiting for you in the town square. He sent us to get you. Amelia's heart skipped. He's waiting for me? Uh-huh. He has something to show you. The children led her downstairs and out into the crisp Christmas night. The town square was empty except for one figure standing near the Christmas tree, his breath creating small clouds in the cold air. Sam, go on, Melanie whispered, giving her a gentle push. Amelia walked across the square, her footsteps muffled by the snow. As she got closer, she could see that Sam was holding something, a small wrapped package. The children said you wanted to see me, she said when she reached him. I did. I have something for you. He held out the package. I made it last Christmas, after you left. I told myself I was making it for someone else, but I think I always knew it was for you. With trembling fingers, Amelia unwrapped the package. Inside was a small wooden figure, a woman in simple robes, her face serene but determined, her hands outstretched as if offering something precious. She's beautiful, Amelia whispered. Who is she? Mary, Sam replied. But not the Mary from traditional nativity scenes. This is Mary making her choice. Mary saying yes to something impossible, something that will change everything about her life. Mary choosing love over fear. Amelia looked up at him, seeing the meaning in his eyes. I've been thinking about what you said, Sam continued, about love being worth the risk, about choosing what makes you happy instead of what feels safe. And I think Mary had it right. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is say yes to something impossible. Sam stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. Amy, don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how we're going to navigate the complications of your royal life, or whether we can really build something lasting together. But I know I love you. I know you make me better. And I know I'd rather risk everything for a chance at happiness with you than play it safe with someone else. Sam, let me finish. I'm choosing you, Amy. Princess Amelia, whoever you are, whatever complications come with you, I'm choosing to trust you, to trust us, to believe that love really can be stronger than fear. Amelia felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at this man who had just offered her everything she'd ever wanted, not just his love, but his faith in their future together. I love you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I love you and your children and this community and the life we could build together. I love you enough to risk everything for us. Then let's be brave together, Sam said, reaching for her hands. Let's say yes to something impossible. Their kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. Around them, the Christmas lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in the distance, church bells began to chime midnight, welcoming December 26th and all the possibilities it held. When they finally broke apart, Amelia saw Melanie and Coulter watching from the bakery doorway, their faces lit up with joy. Does this mean you're going to marry our dad? Coulter called out. If he asks me properly, Amelia called back, laughing. Sam grinned and dropped to one knee right there in the snow, pulling a simple ring from his pocket. Princess Amelia of Eldovia, Amy Winters of Hollyberry Lane, whoever you choose to be, will you marry me? Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes to all of it. Yes to you, yes to your children, yes to this life we're going to build together. As Sam slipped the ring onto her finger, Amelia realized that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for her entire life, a place where she could be completely herself, completely authentic, completely free to choose love over duty, truth over expectation, courage over fear. The Christmas star shone down on them, steady and bright and pointing the way toward home. The end, a year later, Princess Amelia of Eldovia and Sam Miller were married in a ceremony that perfectly captured the spirit of both their worlds. The wedding took place in Hollyberry Lane's town square, with half the guests being European royalty and the other half being the people of the Vermont community who had become Amelia's chosen family. The bride wore a simple ivory dress that she'd designed herself, and the groom carved their wedding rings from maple wood grown in Vermont soil. Princess Amelia kept her title but made her home in Hollyberry Lane, where she established a foundation that connected rural American communities with international development projects. She spent half her time serving as a cultural ambassador for Eldovia, and half her time working with her hands alongside her husband in his workshop. Their first Christmas as a married couple featured a nativity pageant that drew visitors from around the world, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And in the stable scene, among the traditional figures of Mary and Joseph and the Christ child, there was a new figure that Sam had carved, a woman in royal robes kneeling in the hay, her crown set aside, offering the gift of her true self. Some gifts, after all, can only be given when everything else is stripped away, and so our Christmas story comes to a peaceful end. Like snow settling gently on the rooftops of Hollyberry Lane, Princess Amelia found her true home not in a palace, but in the warmth of community and the strength of love freely chosen. As you drift toward sleep tonight, may you carry with you the gentle magic of this small Vermont town, where Christmas lights twinkle like stars and love always finds a way. Sweet dreams, and may your own Christmas be filled with the authentic joy that Amelia discovered in the most unexpected place. Sleep well,